Hey everyone, welcome to Dialog Choices,
Hello.
newly christened podcast and so on. I am Keith.
I am
Steph.
Colonel.
Oh,
We fucked it up immediately.
No!
That's it. That's the only chance you guys get. People have to try to hear both at the same time. It's like the fucking Dr. Horrible song.
And I'm Andrew.
I'm Stephanie, I guess.
Oh, there's two of her now. That's how it
In my
works. You
defense-
spawned a second Stephanie entity into the podcast.
In my defense, the lag
It's
made
good
it
for
seem as if
everyone.
I spoke earlier, so yeah. Because I'm on the other side of the planet. Everybody else is on...
Oh yeah, we have the full spectrum of latency. We got two people in the same room, one person a couple hours away, and one person 12 time zones away. Is it 12 time zones? There's one for every hour, right? That's basically.
I think it's just 8.
basically.
Just 8
Oh yeah,
hours.
it's 8. You're right.
Yeah. So
I'm the
it's
fool.
late. It's late evening for me, and you guys are only starting your day.
Yeah, because you're run GMT. That was stupid. That was really stupid.
What was stupid?
That was really stupid.
I didn't even get that joke, Keith.
I think my brain connected the fact that I was watching The Boys, and in the most recent episode, that one dude is wearing like a blazer, and under it he's wearing a Run DMC shirt.
Is GMT your time zone?
Yeah, GMT is
Yeah.
0.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Like our time zone is GMT -8. Or
What does
plus 8? Minus 8.
GMT stand for?
Greenwich Mean Time.
Yeah,
I've
I've
heard
never
it
remembering
pronounced-
that again.
I've heard it pronounced Greenwich rather than
It might be Greenwich. I'm just going by the spelling.
because it's the British, and you know.
This
Yeah.
is why we changed it to UTC. Because,
Yeah, just so we didn't have to learn how to pronounce
we,
the word.
we didn't have to learn how to pronounce a weird like country nobody ever
Yeah.
visits.
But it's just like it's like the time zone that's at like the prime meridian, which is also a very British. We're the most important people in the world definition of how to orient the whole world. Because our entire coordinate plane of how we say latitude, longitude, is based entirely around a vertical line that goes through England. But also our time zones are defined that way. So everything revolves around England.
I mean, if you're going to be the person to start something like that, you might as well, like, stake claim
Yeah.
on being, like, defining yourself as being the most important.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know which country wouldn't do that.
It's all of a human achievement is a series of people trying to get places and put a flag there. Including the
Not
moon.
all of it.
A lot
some
of
of
it.
A lot of...
I mean,
You,
no
you
one's managed to
discover
put
things so you can name it after yourself.
Think of all the nice food that we have, and that is not named after anybody. Or
No one seems really quick to rush to name viruses after themselves.
Yeah, they are.
The Stephanie
Some of them are,
virus.
at least.
Yes, please.
that sounds like something completely different. It's just
Or that,
so dialogue
that's
choices.
Yeah, we're a podcast. How you doing? This is an interview
What?
between me and Colonel about the concept of a podcast. How
I
you guys
was,
doing?
no, I
is
was.
a
I wanted to
podcast?
address. I wanted to address how good the title is because I feel if
Oh,
we
I-
don't, nobody is going to say in the comments, and we must congratulate ourselves because it is a great title. I like it. I love it.
We were just throwing some names out. Like, we got to name this fucker.
This
By
child.
the way, this has fucks in it.
yeah.
There's your warning after it's already said.
Too late.
That's the kind of podcast we are. Fucking X-rated.
that.
Fuck.
Extra
All right.
spicy. No, I think Dialog Choices is a great name. Good job, guys.
I just like pissing people off.
do you really?
Yeah, I mean, have you met me?
I don't know, you're pretty nice to me, dude.
No, I don't like pissing off real people. I like
Just
pissing
people
off.
who can't retaliate.
I love
Not real
pissing
people.
off. I love pissing off people as a concept.
Okay.
So I picked the
Oh.
unpopular spelling of dialogue. There's no UE
Wait a
at
minute.
the end.
Yeah,
The UE is also American. Are those both American spelling?
Specifically, dialogue with a UE is when you're talking, but when you have a dialogue box in a software, it's spelled OG with no UE.
I feel like if anyone's having a
Just-
casual conversation and they decide to type out dialogue, like, I don't know.
No one catches it.
I just feel like
Specifically,
I'd punch someone in the face for being that that huffy over that.
specifically,
You're missing the U and the E, sir.
it's
That's how it's
missable
pronounced.
enough that like I pointed out that I did that in like the announcement video. I'm like, you guys can argue about the name now, and it's like, fuck, I didn't notice until you pointed it out. Like people,
I didn't either,
like
actually.
people notice it when it's pointed out, but it's not important enough because it gets switched so much anyway. That's just how I spelled it naturally, and it's also like a symmetrical number of letters.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. It like looks better.
Yeah. Speaking of looking better, I win.
Wow.
Do you look better than all of us?
We had an anonymous vote over 2 logos.
Oh, right.
And I didn't say anything about which one was which or what the context was for there being 2 logos, but it was because I made a logo, and while I was revisioning it over and over again, Andrew also made a logo, and I'm like, all right, well, let's just fucking vote on them, because I don't want to argue about which one's better or whatever, but I thought mine was, and then it won. It wasn't big, though. It was 45-55.
That's a landslide. I don't know.
I wasn't sure. Like, I wasn't sure if that was the final the final design you wanted to go with, or you're like, this is the concept I have now, just to make it, different.
Because it looked like I was just sketching it out.
Like I thought you were just sketching it. I was like, all right, I'll try to
no,
graphic design it.
I actually want like this sketchy ass logo. It was just what I was feeling, and it's liked enough. But there was definitely like when the results were announced, people are just like, "This is why we can't have nice things." Because they're like, there is a contingent of people who prefer the other logo.
Was it like
so? It's just another way to piss people off.
Was Andrew's really crisp and clean? Is that like the difference? Was his like?
Yeah, this is over.
I mean, I like that
it wasn't the only
like
difference. I think what I like about this logo is that the lettering is indeed like it is very legible. Andrew's version of it was a little bit tinier on the lettering, so I don't know.
I was avoiding
better about what we ended up with.
I was avoiding coloring the judgment, but my one of the things that stood out to me about the vector one was that like
I could change the font.
When you shrink it down, it's like a really big circle.
It's a matter of balancing. It's kind of complicated because the logo creation is very much about feel and about how it comes across the first time.
I like.
And
I muted us. There we go.
Oh, you muted us.
Oh yeah.
It's like wow,
sorry.
we really all just talked over each other for a second there. I'm like, fuck.
Sorry,
Dude,
we couldn't hear you.
For context for my stupid bullshit for the audience, I'm really bad at adding new hotkeys to PC games that I'm not already comfortable pressing, that I have muscle memory derived for. So I was like, how do I comfortably add a toggle to Discord and Overwatch that's a button I'm used to pressing that isn't already taken? And that's a very narrow window. So I was like, middle mouse. But then every now and then I'll like browse and I'll fucking middle mouse to auto scroll or something, and then I'll be muted and won't notice. And I'm like, fuck.
I thought you middle moused to open links in a new tab because you mentioned it before, and I figured you would.
I use middle mouse because it opens the little scrolling thing, so you don't have to keep rolling.
Yeah, I know. But like opening, it also opens links in a new tab, and I know of people. You might be one of those, Keith. Do you know that?
No, I think I use control click.
You don't middle click to open a new tab.
Is it control click or shift click? I mean, holding a button on the keyboard is more comfortable than pressing middle click ever.
Is it? That's your mice.
No.
Your mice are not good enough.
I've never had a mouse where it was like where I love middle clicking.
I don't.
I can middle click to start the scrolling because its location doesn't matter. But if I'm middle clicking in any other context, it might move the mouse and then I don't hit what I mean.
Yeah, that's because I see. I know what you mean because some mice do that, but it's just
this is a incredible topic to discuss 10 minutes to a
I don't know what to do.
We're talking about hotkeys to mute the Discord.
I'm incredibly lazy. I want everything to be as less energy as possible, and middle click is easy. I don't want to put my finger onto a keyboard because I have to move another hand now. Where with one hand I can sit here and scroll.
You're operating on the assumption you're not already on the keyboard.
No, I never keep both hands on the keyboard unless I'm playing a game.
Oh, yeah, I always have left hand on the keyboard when I'm using the computer. So I'm just
like,
I do too.
So the reason I usually have my left hand. Well, so my left hand I'm usually holding my phone and using my phone, and then I'm using my computer with my right hand.
I've got a muscle memory of this. Yeah, it's control
severe ADD makes it hard to focus on one thing at one time.
Because everything's muscle memory oriented and I don't think about what they are, I just had to test to be sure. I was like, yes, it's control click. That opens a new tab.
Yeah.
I genuinely didn't know.
I didn't even know that.
I think shift click is a new window.
Oh.
I'd never try that.
I think that's, is it control shift click?
It might be control shift click.
I think control shift click might be incognito. It's very useful if you have, like, in the modern ecosystem where every single website has you currently logged into, like, a Google or Facebook account across 12 websites, like, being able to instantly switch to incognito just to log out of things is really handy sometimes.
So
I want to log out without logging out.
So Control-click opens a new tab, but not as the primary tab.
It's a background tab, and then...
Yeah, it's a background tab.
Yeah, I see.
Middle click does the same thing, but if you shift click, it brings it into a new window. If you do...
Y'all are a bunch of nerds.
I gotta rescue us. I gotta rescue us with the question. I gotta rescue us with the question.
I'm sorry.
Let's see.
Speaking of nerds, we can ask about Keith about his columnar jointing thing.
Oh, no.
There's a question about that.
We can do that question. When I go to another boring
Keith's
topic.
definitely a nerd.
Another boring topic? It's columnar jointing. That's not boring.
This one, let's see. This one's from Nightstorm. This one's for all of you, but I have a question. We all know Keith loves columnar joining. He makes it very apparent with regular YouTube posts. But what about Colonel and Andrew? What do they think? And also Stephanie, I guess. These questions were proposed in the context of like, hey, Colonel and Andrew will probably be there. I don't know who else. So all the questions are not going to mention anybody else. Also, Keith, why do you like columnar joining so much? What do you guys think of columnar joining? Manufactured
I like that this is sort
now.
of a hazing question where they're like, oh, there's some new people for the podcast. Ask them about columnar jointing.
It's a test to see if you can fit in.
If we say it's bad, we're not coming back next week.
It's my brand.
I don't think about rocks. Sorry,
I think it's a good choice.
Yeah, that's like the only answer I can give. I don't think about them. I don't know. I have no opinion.
I think we're going to be a good team in our podcast here because I majored in archaeology, and whenever I talk about archaeology, people think about dinosaurs. And dinosaurs are
like
paleontology.
Jurassic Park. I know that's like the biggest.
Yeah.
Man.
Wait, is that not archaeology?
I took a class in paleontology. Archaeology,
it's a huge misconception.
It's tied to human history, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Isn't
that just writing class? Can't you just read human history? Why do you have to
Anthropology is humans?
Yeah, humans is anthropology. Whoops.
Anthropology is specifically the study of the bones and stuff like that. But if it's modern day anthropology, then it becomes more sociological. I studied what I studied focuses more sort of stuff in like prehistory, like 20,000 years ago, or maybe 10,000 years ago, or stuff more modern, like medieval, the classic era and stuff like that. So
are you like digging up people's houses and being like, wow, look at these?
So that's why I'm talking. It's like people think, oh, it's dinosaurs, and I'm like, no, it's just rocks. I dig up rocks, except it's not the rocks that look nice and are hexagonal. It's the ones that people made into.
Do people get disappointed?
Just imagine like archaeologist house flippers. It's like, so there's your problem you got there. It's under the dirt.
That would be a problem for a house.
I'm imagining like you're trying to sell an old castle, and you have to bring like an archaeologist in, and he has to appraise the house. He has to be like, actually, it's only worth like $15,000 because it didn't take place during the big battle. This castle is actually a couple years newer, so it's not that historically valuable.
Unfortunately, if that were how it worked, then there would be a lot of jobs for archaeologists. The way it works with castles is that the government forces, not just castles, but anything with historical value. Basically, you're required by law to employ archaeologists so that they can say, okay, they can do this, or they can change this about the building, or they can even break it down if it's not valuable or anything. But because of that investment, that extra investment, there's a lot of stuff that is lost. Just as you can imagine, like stuff like, especially for prehistorical things that are just below the surface of the earth, like in fields and whatnot. If somebody, is with a tractor or something just digging up the fields or whatever and finds some, old stones and stuff like that, their immediate tendency is going to be to, we didn't find anything, because they're going to have to pay a lot of money because the government itself doesn't pay. It needs to be the person. So the
person has to pay for what? For it to be scoped out?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
unless it's found
terrible
to be,
idea.
It's a terrible idea. It is.
Wait,
I just vaguely fixated on Andrew's idea. Like that's of like a castle being shit because it wasn't in a battle. I'm just like, just picturing like, just thinking of like this like idea of like a sad song about a castle being like personified as like it's being built up and it's like has this one purpose and then it goes through its entire life cycle of never like seeing a battle. It's like from the perspective of this untested castle.
Yeah, so I brought that up because Turkey did that. Turkey built this crazy castle in a week, and it only served to like for one battle, and then most of it was gone because it was just so quickly built and cheap. And then they kind of rebuilt it, and halfway through it, they're like, "Wait, who gives a shit? It was only here for like one battle," and they just stopped rebuilding the castle. And so there's like half a castle here. So it was like, well, it only was here just to like work for one fight, and now it's gone, and so it's not really valuable to us like this, this mosque that's been here for like 200 years. It's like, oh, okay.
Dude, war is weird. The resources that used to go into it were some next level. I mean, it still happens now, but just in a different way that's less cool sounding, I guess. But like I was watching a Overly Sarcastic Productions video that was like a remaster of like their trilogy of videos about the history of Rome, and they hit this part with Caesar where he was, I don't remember where it was, but he was trying to take this city or country or whatever, and he had to deal with the idea that there'd be attackers coming from the country that they're attacking, but also that there could be people that come in from behind. So they just built like 100 miles of wall, both in front of them and behind them. And I'm like, what the fuck was warfare back then? You could just build walls like it's fucking Age of Empires. Like it's not even to defend your town. It's just like, our army's currently here. They might attack from either side. So let's just build a wall.
Well, there's like a lot of free manpower and a lot of like nationalism and just,
free manpower is another word for slavery as well in this case.
Yeah.
That battle's actually really fantastic because it was it was like the most spiteful battle I've ever read about, where he built a wall, left only one entrance that people could get through, which is a very narrow canal where they can clearly just stand on top and, lambast them with arrows and shit. And the entire time, he doesn't approach the city at all. He just stands there in the distance, kind of flipping off the guy in the city as he's building a wall around his town. And he's like, "You're never going to get food again." And he's like, "Oh, fuck, I'm never going to get food again." And so people are dying from famine, and they come out and they're like, "Can we just abandon this guy?" And he's like, "No, go back in there. I want you all to die because then it smells bad in the town." And now he has to leave.
Is that really
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Caesar was like, no one can leave. They must all stay there, so that way the rotting corpses pile up to a degree that they have to leave the building.
Oh my gosh.
Or the enemies come to get reinforcements, and we just wipe them out, and they'll never get food.
That's
and he's
next
like,
level.
There was a thing that happened
Next
where,
level thinking.
on top of all this, the outside reinforcements did arrive, and it was this big force, but then Caesar flanked them from behind with a cavalry detachment, and the force that was coming in to save the area freaked out, thinking the entire Roman reinforcements had arrived, but it was just one unit, and so they fled, and then they won the battle. It's like
that definitely happens a lot.
History sounds absurd.
That's the thing though. Back then, what do you?
It's old from the pre-intelligence period. You wouldn't have information about this stuff. You'd be like, "Oh fuck, here they come!" I think looks like it.
That sort of warfare happens a lot, even until 200 years ago. The notion of things like shock cavalry and shock troops that just are there to break the morale. It's very important because the battles don't end when everybody on the other side is dead. They end when the other side declares that
you play a medieval warfare video game and it's like, oh, you see they got that much number and they got that much number and they're gonna go clash in the middle and probably that one will win, and you kind of can make all these intelligent choices. But in real history, it was a lot of different. Mammals standing up on their hind legs to look bigger to scare the other one. A lot of that stuff, the fucking T-posing honey, is it the honey badger or the Wolverine or something?
It might be the Wolverine.
There's a badger.
Badger.
There's a mammal that when it just sees, I think it's the anteater.
The anteater.
The anteater just fucking T-poses in a power stance.
It kind of is. If you saw
really
that, it would catch you off guard.
I would run away.
Yeah,
I would run away if I saw one of those things. Like, it works.
There's that incredible fucking painting that's like that. You would know it because you always know this stuff. It's the outside of a diner painting, and it's got like a few famous people in the diner.
Nighthawks.
And there's a version of that where like I think like a fucking newsstand was thrown out the window or something, and everyone's looking out like, what's that? And then outside the window is just this like honey bat. It's just the anteater T-posing. It's just like it's coming for you,
dude. It's like geese. That's how geese work. Geese aren't actually scary. You could pick up a geese and throw a goose, but dude, they're really gutsy. They just come at you. They don't give you time to think about it.
Why do like people really give in to geese? And there's nothing about them as a creature that is intimidating.
Their legs are really hard.
They're just really mean.
They will screw your legs up.
You have 2 fists that you can use to literally rock 'em, sock 'em on a goose's mouth. That thing's out. You could grab it by the neck and it's
heavy.
out. You could step on it and it's out. A goose has literally 0 ways to get you.
And it knows that, and that's why it has to like throw everything it's got up against the wall.
And people treat it like it's a bear. They're like, "Oh shit, I just gotta go." The goose is mad, and it's like, just punch it. The goose will turn around. I've done it. Just punch the goose. It will turn around.
I've done it. I punched some goose.
Yeah,
no,
I brought. Like
we were at the.
I fought a chicken once. So I can sympathize with Andrew.
I assume Andrew has because he had chickens.
Yeah,
but,
you fought your chickens.
Yeah, but my we were on this family trip to like this muddy pond. That doesn't sound very great when you put it that way.
No, it doesn't. It was a whole Kids,
park.
get in the car.
It's a
We're
pond.
going to
It's
the
amazing.
muddy
There was
pond.
a whole park, like a hiking area, but there was a specific pond we'd go to on the way around and so on, and there was a bunch of geese. And my brother was like taunting them and like harassing them and would chase them around and stuff. But at one point he'd like full on sprinted towards this like really big white goose. And instead of running, it just fucking turned straight at him and spread all the way out, like aggressive and everything. And he like hesitated and backpedaled. And the mud did not respond well to that, so he ended up sliding like he was going for first base, like through the mud towards the goose, and then like backpedaled out because like the fucking intimidate check works. Like that's how they survive. Like
they're here for a reason. They've lasted this long for a reason. That's the reason.
Technically, they're lasting this long because there's laws against hunting them.
Yeah, and they really adapt well to human suburban areas.
Well, remember, we used to do the thing where we would sterilize their eggs, and they had no idea that was happening.
By putting oil on them, right?
Yeah. We were killing them in, like, such mass quantities. People were like, whoa, they're going to go extinct. And we're like, yes, we know. They're going extinct. It's like, no, we don't do that. It's kind of like the wolves. We did that with wolves, too, where we're like, yeah, they're almost all gone, guys. We did it. It's like, no. Leave the wolves alone. It's like, no, we're going to wipe them out. It's like, what?
Yeah, we did. Unfortunately, we did that with a lot of species.
Oh yeah, almost every species that's alive right now that isn't like a bug is only, or in the deep ocean, is only alive because we've just decided to stop killing them all.
You say that, but the bugs
the one thing that would be incredibly easy to kill. We just can't muster the energy to do
it. No, bugs are the hardest to kill, man. We've been trying to kill mosquitoes for years. There is a Nobel Prize, like there's a huge amount of money in it for whoever can figure out how to wipe out mosquitoes because they're on the list of like animals
that
or
contribute
bugs
nothing
or whatever that actually are detrimental to every other thing on the planet.
Yeah,
but there is a huge amount of money in it for whatever scientists can figure it out.
The most species that are being wiped out right now are insects. Like, as a proportional matter, I think it's like we lost like 95% of biodiversity of insects in the last 50 years.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
But we're not talking about the nasty ones, though. We're talking about the ones that are needed for everything.
Because the assholes always survive.
Are you implying that there's like a not nasty version of insects? Like, what is that?
You don't like spiders and
they're not insects.
Caterpillars?
Oh, they're not insects either.
You started
insects have 6 legs.
You started with spiders.
No, you know, cats
and stegosauruses.
I just read there's like a legit study that someone did that proved that most entomologists, despite being people who study insects, are afraid of spiders. Like a huge proportion of them are.
Go fuck spiders.
I wonder if it's one of those like I'm gonna conquer my fear by finding a way to murder all spiders, and they're like,
that's like their
God,
secret motive to get into
no
entomology.
Yeah,
I think spiders just like there's like an instinct level reason to not like them.
Maybe.
I think it's just
there's
a
lot of societal.
Tell that to my tarantulas in my room next door. I'll bring them over and put them on your face.
There's a lot of societal pressure for
definitely not
for being afraid of spiders. Honestly, I could see it being either way.
I don't really care much about spiders. I just
it's like snakes. Why would you be afraid of snakes?
Well, okay. First of all, snakes.
Most
snakes
of them are tiny.
Snakes have an actual ability to try to strangle you. They're built
Some
to strangle.
do.
That's not really the dangerous thing they do.
Is it not?
That's also
No, it's the it's the bite. That's
you could just
significantly more dangerous.
Just step on them. It's fine.
Don't step on a snake. Why are you doing
most
this?
snake bites come as a surprise. Like somebody walking in the dark or something, and they get bit by a snake, and then they don't know what snake it was, and they got to figure out how to get the antivenom in the middle of an Australian outback or, or Nevada.
Yeah.
Rule number 1: don't wear any kind of shoes outside that don't go to your knees.
Rule number 0: don't go to the Australian outback without antidotes.
There's a
rule number 0.5: don't go outside.
There was but there was like this prison that was built in Australia that was one of the most dangerous prisons at the time, and they didn't put like hardly any fencing or security around it because it was in the middle of like this really dangerous part of like the Australian middle of nowheres, and basically the thought process was like nobody wants to escape because if you do, you're not making it to anywhere because the amount of snakes, the density of snakes and like deadly things from here to like the next who knows where is so far that you'll definitely die. It's like the Alcatraz method, where it's like there's like hardly any fences.
I like how they just assume that like, well, the nature will take care of them.
Like you're not like nobody tried to escape, like nobody did because they're just like, well,
isn't that the plot of Holes?
Is it? They might have taken it.
I think Holes was also in the middle of nowhere, so you can't reasonably escape or something. I haven't watched it
well,
still.
I mean, I guess the sandworms are a risk, but I was gonna say, like, is there much in Holes universe that are like a threat to you besides like that?
I think somebody goes out and almost dies during the plot.
There are rattlesnakes, I think.
But
that was a plot point.
The reason why I figured there's probably like a sort of intrinsic fear of certain animals like spiders and so on is the way my thought process here is that like there are certain snakes and so on that are really dangerous, and certain animals that are really dangerous, and then there's other animals that physically mimic the appearance of those animals as a survival mechanism.
Oh.
But
a lot of snakes things look like more deadly snakes.
Yeah.
But
a lot of those things are dangerous in a way where if you encounter the danger aspect and you're another animal, you probably die to it. So you can't really learn learn over the course of your life, like, oh, that's the bad snake, like the way that somebody like learns about like which berries are safe to eat or whatever. So like I kind of figure there's like an aspect of like in like those animals like on like some sort of instinctual level, like generation to generation somehow understand that kind of snake, don't go anywhere near that kind of snake, which is why other things can piggyback on looking like that snake.
The scientists have like found that there is actually like a certain aspect of genetics that does contribute to like why there's a reason that like baby animals instantly know that like that coral snake is dangerous. And
so
there's a genetic aspect
that about
to it.
snakes. I mean, spiders. I figure like because spiders are
human beings are. You think you give us? I mean, I think we deserve more credit. You think we can unlearn certain like stupid?
That's
human beings deserve no credit.
Phobias work, though.
I kind of wish instead of learning what fucking snakes are important, we like inherited math. That would be really great.
Yeah, then we would have to learn it in school. That'd be great.
Yeah, how pointless is like, oh, don't watch out for red frogs. I'm fucking not into red frogs. I need to know algebra. And it's like, oh, well, let me pass that down in my DNA. Like,
the thing is, like, humans can learn which spiders on a factual level are like the dangerous ones.
But some people aren't born with
the
big ones.
Yeah, but I'm saying like that might be why the phobias exist. I don't think it's like, oh, I had a traumatic history with spiders or something. It's like I'm just afraid of spiders. I don't have like a spider story.
I think a lot of it's learned. Like I remember going to a zoo and going into like the little snake house, you know, and then there's like this mom and she's holding her kid and she went to like each little like area with the snake. She's like, ew, look, a snake, ew, a snake, and the kid's like, oh yeah, ew, snake, you know. And I'm like, don't teach your kid to be afraid of the snakes.
I just won't.
I'm looking at coral snakes right now, and they're so beautiful.
They are.
Are they dangerous?
Those are the ones those are the ones that will hurt you. I think there are king snakes that will look like coral snakes that don't hurt you. And there's a poem to remember which one's which, and it's like black and yellow kills a fellow, yellow nest like there's a tiger by his toe. I forget it, which is why I would die.
If he hollers, let him go.
I remember.
Hug all the snakes.
I like the idea of somebody being in like an emergency situation. And then they're like trying to remember like the nomadics and stuff that might save their lives, but they're like stupid bullshit nursery rhymes that don't help anything. Like catch a tiger by its toe, if he hollers, let him go. It's like,
that'll save me now.
That's not. I'm sure that one is not for survivability.
Yeah. So you fall into the tiger enclosure. It's like, it's okay, I got this.
The thing is, it's okay to be scared of animals, little animals that might be putting up an act. I remember when I was very little. I think I was like 7. I saw like I'm gonna say a litter of kittens, but it wasn't. They were kind of like already grown up, like probably 2 months old, and they were going up these stairs that I had in my house, and there was a door that was open at the top of the stairs, and it went into the inside of the house. And I was like, oh, those kittens are they're not ours. They weren't ours. They were like stray.
Oh,
so I went after them to
just like a herd of kittens made their way into your house.
Yeah, because our house is like, we got like a backyard and whatnot. There's houses that are around, and you know how it is. There's just a lot of kittens going around. Not necessarily kittens, but sometimes there are. But I noticed that I figured that either they had their nest in there or something, and I wanted, as a 7-year-old, I wanted to mess with the kittens, and I went after them. They didn't like me. They weren't very old, but they did not like me. And I closed the door behind me as I got into the room, and they freaked out so hard that they were like literally climbing the walls around me. I never saw anything like that, honestly, and I don't remember to what extent this is false memory for me being so young. But I remember just bailing out of there, down the stairs, and I hear the cats around me and behind me just falling down the stairs, like they were running away as well, because everybody was freaked out in that situation. And they were just kittens, and I was super scared as well. So
why can't we have any cool pests? We only have mosquitoes and spiders.
What is a cool pest?
Yeah, I was going to say...
that seems like an oxymoron.
Apparently Portugal has, like, roaming cat herds.
Well, raccoons are cool.
I guess, like, Florida has, like, iguanas, and that's kind of neat.
Yeah, I was going to say Mexico does.
If you go to the mountains, you have, like, random roaming deer that eat your front yard.
Yeah.
And but that's, like, hours from here.
I don't know if I consider deer a pest. You're kind of the one building in their backyard.
But I mean, like, roaming animal things that just kind of
the people who live there totally consider them pests, and they hate them, which is kind of like, it's like we go there and visit. And we're like, oh, look at the majesty, look at that, and then they're like, I fucking hate this deer.
No, my mom constantly complains about all the deer that keep eating all of her flowers that she tries to plant and so on.
Why didn't just get a Japanese bamboo fountain? That's why they exist.
There's a little clink clink.
Really?
Yeah.
The clink ones exist to scare deers away from gardens.
Oh, nice. That's really interesting.
There's also
there's
also bears.
There's a
bit of an extreme.
Well, that works for bears too. They also don't like the sound of a suddenly bonging thing. Like
why don't they like that? Why does that work? It seems like a really innocuous sound. Clunk, clunk.
So obviously they can kind of adapt to it if they don't find there to be much threat, but there's no because it's so sudden, they can't time it, and it's just like a loud pong that hits, and they're just kind of like, oh, what was that?
They can't identify the pattern.
I think the idea is it's supposed to mimic the sound of a gun, so that they get kind of startled from like a loud sound, and they know that the gun is hunting them, so they got to get out of there.
But wasn't that invented before guns were invented? Like, weren't the ancient Japanese using that, like,
do bows make that noise?
I don't think they...
I don't know.
Yeah, I just...
something about the loud noise.
There's just a lot of weird tricks.
The
put
bags...
a cucumber behind a cat.
They
lose their shit. Maybe because they think it's a snake. Like that's probably an instinctive level, like when we talk about these other ideas. But then, like, there's like a grate you can put down that cows won't cross.
Oh yeah, cattle grate.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like you just put this thing on the ground and like, not going that way. And it's like there's just tricks you can use. Fucking hashtag life hacks.
So they're called shishiodoshi, and they actually translate to scare deer.
I remember growing up in like in everybody's garden at a certain time of year to scare away the swallows. They would have those cassette tape, like the innards of the cassette tapes. They would just, put it all over the gardens
like
and the fences and whatnot.
Like the tape inside?
The tape itself.
Why?
That seems like
I don't know why, but
bio waste. Like that seems bad for the environment.
I always like the ones where people hang the plastic bags full of water to keep flies away because it like refracts their vision. Like for some reason. So if you ever like go someplace,
so that's like the CDs. Some people do it with CDs.
I was gonna say, that makes sense too. But for some reason, you can't. If you ever go someplace, if you go someplace and you see clear bags with like water in them, that's what they're for. And for some reason, flies have a hard time understanding what they're looking at if they are next to that, so it makes them stay away.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, like that corner's haunted. I'm not going there.
Creating like some kind of Bermuda Triangle for them, where they're like, okay, I can see all this shit, but like, what's there? I don't get it.
I mean, have you seen the eyes of a fly?
Yeah. They just see like a wormhole in the corner. And like, I'm not going in this room. It's not. It's the bedroom.
You guys ever hear that experiment where they had to have a baby crawl across the room, and the room was tiled with like black and white checkered like tiles, but they made an optical illusion where it looked like the floor dipped to like there was a pit, and the baby won't climb over the part that looks like a pit to get to their mom on the other side, and the baby would just sit and cry because they had like an actual drop, but they covered it with like a plastic, or not like a plastic, but like a clear floor, so the baby could crawl across it and be fine if he wanted to. It's just the baby could tell that there was a dip because the tiles were farther away. And so, because babies see in black and white for a long time, they don't see in color.
They see what?
No, babies don't see. No, babies don't see in color right away. They see black and white. So if you want really good baby toys, you should buy black and white ones and not ones that are all colorful and cute. That's more for you.
What if you pushed it in the hole? Would it freak out? Would it know it's gonna fall to its death?
They're just these great pictures, these great photographs of these babies crying in front of like what looks like a pit while their mom stands on the other side of the room.
Babies are cowards.
It's like calling them and they can't get to their mom.
Babies are cowards.
That's why you call someone a baby.
That's right.
Yeah, cry baby.
You gonna cry, baby?
Speaking of terrible ways of torturing people, we have a question about that.
Yeah, I think it's a banned experiment. You can't do that anymore.
That was we were like electrocuting babies that would pet dogs to make them scared of dogs or something like that.
Oh, jeez.
Oh my god.
Well, that would work.
Something traumatized, something babies are vulnerable creatures, and then we didn't do that
we
again.
Didn't need an experiment to figure that out. Like, I think you can figure that out on your own.
Instead, we started using monkey babies because there were no laws against that.
Yeah.
And that didn't turn out good at all.
There's a lot of distressing tests. Like we
found out. Yeah,
there's the one where they had like the nurturing mother and then the horrible skeleton mother.
Oh god.
Yeah.
The robot monkey.
Oh, I've seen that.
No.
Yeah, there's a monkey, so bad. There was a monkey that had two mothers that I could go to, and one was comforting, and the other one was just like a frame and nothing else. But it gave it food.
Yeah, it was like one gives it food, but it's harsh and pointy, and the other didn't give it food, but it was warm and nurturing.
So it would go back and forth. It would like go to one for nurture and go back to the comfortable one,
the crappy mom for food.
But I think they pretty much all just went insane anyway. Like it was a fucked up test.
That seems like self-explanatory. Like I'm going to eat, but then I'm going to go back to the comfortable place. That seems like you don't need an experiment for that either. Like,
so the experiment was to prove that was supposed to prove something about children prefer a certain type of parent, and like somehow if you just provide, it would be enough. Like the parent or the monkey wouldn't care if the parent. So the experiment was the mother that just provides should be successful in being the only parent that the monkey wants to be near because it provides it food. And a baby doesn't care if you hug it; it just wants food. That was his entire experiment. And so he provided the nurturing one that doesn't feed as the thing of like, see, it won't go there because it doesn't get food. It's worthless. No one wants a caring mother.
Wrong.
And the monkey was like, actually, I want fucking hugs. And he was like,
I want hugs for days.
I feel that experiment would be easy to not do if they just asked a mother and be like, "Do babies like nurture?"
That
or
was
is it
the
just
problem.
Food?
Was that you can't ask a parent because the parents could be like, "Yeah, my baby loves me." Like, no, your baby doesn't love you, man. It has no concept.
You can to a certain extent,
yeah,
especially when it comes to societal behavior.
But again, this is like an infant. Its
true.
choices are like almost, all of its choices are just natural choices. It's not thinking critically. It's just like,
that's a good point.
Yeah, but no, like he said, all the monkeys went insane and had to be euthanized because not a single monkey survived the experiments.
Ethical testing in science.
There was a really great documentary I watched recently that was a true story about these three. Triplets. I had to think of the word for the three. Yeah, three triplets who they were all adopted by different families, and none of the families or the kids knew that they had siblings. Then they all found each other on accident, and it became like this big media sensation. But it turns out the reason that they were separated is because there were groups that were actually doing experiments to see how they'd all turn out with different families, like being raised differently. And so there was people that would show up under the guise of like observing the adoptive family and make sure they were still like taking good care of the kid. But in reality, they were actually taking down notes of like how the kids were turning out. But them all meeting each other and finding out that they all exist on accident
spoiled the experiment.
Ruined their. No, they were like adults when this happened, but it made them go. They had like huge problems, and then one of them ended up like killing himself, and like they had all these big issues because they felt like they had all these weird issues because they felt like they were obligated to be like each other, and so they went on talk shows and like were like talking about how they were all like how similar they were, but then like it was just this big pressure to feel like they knew each other even though they didn't, that they end up like all kind of like having disjointed relationships with each other and having all these big problems. It's like ended up being like a really unethical experiment in the long run because these adults turned out really dysfunctional because they like were like
experiments like that usually have to be made in accidental separations at birth and stuff like that. Because
I feel like
the group tried to like they tried to cover it up and pretend like it was an accident, but it turns out later they found the proof and there was a big lawsuit. They sued this company that did this. They found out that it was totally on purpose, and there's a whole documentary on it. And I think it was recommended by Quentin Reviews, I think.
But did the experiment force them to be friends with each other?
No, they found each other on a complete accident.
One of them what I mean. Like, this seems kind of like
that was probably the television.
This seems like a society issue. Well, we all assumed they had to be friends, but the scientists were not trying.
No, the scientists at that point were not in their labs anymore. But like they met each other, and then they were trying to find all these correlations between each other because it just felt like they should have a connection because they're all siblings.
Like, I like drugs.
What's your favorite color? Like, like stupid
just the idea like that your entire life was an experiment, and then the experiment ended, and no one told you, and they just dump you into the world.
Yeah, no, one went to college, and then everyone at that college was like, "Dude, you came back?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? Like you're this person." They kept calling him this other guy's name. He went to the same college his brother had went to without realizing it.
All those people totally have like main character syndrome now because they have like an uncharacteristically interesting life.
No, yeah, it just fucked them all up. They like had a bunch of problems about it.
Yeah.
What a weird.
By the way, for those that are new here, if you ever hear like a wet slapping sound or something, it's because Stephanie's dog licks the air like a snake.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
So she like loudly slaps her own nose.
She has a tick. Like that's her little tick.
Yeah.
She has anxiety.
She wants to lick you. She wants comfort. So she kind of like starts licking the air and it goes.
Yeah, she's doing it right now. Yeah. I'm sorry, she's annoying.
I have no idea when it does and doesn't pick up. But during that story, she clammed up on me right up to the microphone. I'm like, oh, they probably heard that. Your weird tongue.
They didn't come across on Discord, but maybe on the final version. You're going to enhance that, aren't you? You're just going to make a mix or something.
If I remember where it is or anything. Who didn't answer the salt column question?
None of us. We didn't.
None of us.
Andrew doesn't think about
Andrew
rocks.
He doesn't give a fuck, and then you start talking about archaeology. Right. Did you have any?
I think they're neat, and I think they're really pretty. But I also like hexagons just in general. Yeah. And I think the fact that so many other people like hexagons has ruined my liking for hexagons.
Sounds like something a bee would say.
Because they're just everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? Some kind of vague AAA sci-fi future setting? Oh, look, the walls or floors are all hexagon patterns. Or it's like some kind of hologram. It's all hexagons. It's going to be a hexagonal grid and a sphere, maybe. And it's like, all right, there's other shapes. It's weird how often you see that exact thing, even outside of just...
hexagons... Hexagons are very special, though. Outside of the what?
Like I'm just saying, like how often you see the hexagons outside of even the context of being in columns.
Oh,
like,
right.
Like I looked at the Bill Nye. I've never watched it all the way through, but I looked at a screenshot of the Bill Nye like set for the new show, and the whole floor is these giant gray hexagons. It's like it's toys. It's like it's a science-y shape.
There's something like
sci-fi-y shape.
Yeah. I mean, I think it inherently like looks like something unnatural, but then it's like, oh, we tricked you.
Hexagons are the most natural.
Something that actually naturally occurs. But I mean, you look at a hexagon and it looks like
like bees,
a man-made sort of. It doesn't have like an organic feel to it, regardless of the fact that it actually exists in nature.
Yeah, because if nothing else, it feels like something made it, whatever it is, even if it's like bees or something.
I don't know. I think science like embraces that like when you're watching something inherently very sci-fi. Like I think back to like all the movies like Alien or something that take place in a ship. They don't want anything or like if you like 2001 Space Odyssey, there's like nothing organic going on. It's like we got to pick like a really inorganic looking.
What are you talking about? There was some monkeys.
Well, yeah, I mean except for that part. But I mean we're gonna make everything all white. We're gonna make. Like, I can see them putting hexagons someplace, because, like, that just seems like something a person did, and not nature, because we don't want to remind you of nature at all. We want to alienate you from that feeling.
As somebody who still hasn't watched that movie, the entire film, for me, is just some monkeys around a monolith, and then a sci-fi spaceman floating through an orange tube, while the AI is like, "What are you doing, John?" or whatever. "I'm sorry, John, you can't do that," or something like that. That would kill me,
Why?
John.
You should watch that movie.
That's all it is.
Stanley Kubrick's a genius.
I've still seen almost no Kubrick films.
He is one of the best directors ever.
I saw The Other Shining.
The hallways were hexagons.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is I feel like they use it because it's like it feels
Kubrick
like something that doesn't exist.
Clockwork Orange.
Yes, you did.
I think it's my only Kubrick film.
And The Shining.
He also he made The Shining as well.
Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
I do want to see that. No fighting in the war room.
That's a great movie. But anyways,
I only saw Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket?
No, I've seen Full Metal Jacket.
Oh god,
Doctor Strangelove. Every time I see a clip of that, I always have this reflexive thing where I think
Lolita. You mean Lolita?
I always think that that Strangelove himself is played by what's his name? The guy from Blazing Saddles and Willy Wonka.
Oh, Gene Wilder?
I always think he's Gene Wilder, even though he's not. I always think Strangelove is Gene Wilder.
No.
And I kind of wish he was.
Oh.
I haven't seen the movie, though. I want to.
Gosh dang.
That one looks good. I also want to watch every Coen Brothers movie, but I'm not making much progress there.
No, yeah, they have the highest ratio of movies that I like for what they've... Like, if I look at their... Yeah. They don't have, like, any misses for me on the ones that they've actually directed. I mean, like, they wrote the screenplay, it's like a hit or miss, but it's like, if they directed it, I guarantee you that I like it. Even all the weird ones.
I've seen, like, Burn After Reading... Burn After Reading, the remake of the Western movie. That was a Coen Brothers movie, right? True Grit.
Oh, yeah.
And some other stuff. Fargo. I've watched every season of Fargo, which I think they still make in some aspect. And that show's one of my favorite shows.
I mean, it's...
Huh. I don't know if they have a hand in it. I just don't have the need for it. I think the movie is so good. It's like, I don't know.
It's just a really good show. I just don't need it. It's just a really good show. It's none of the same characters. It's not like...
Well, I know that, but it's like, I don't really know if I need it.
It's just the Coen Brothers wanted to make a show. And so they did one in that kind of like tone and setting.
Are you sure they are involved in it?
Yeah. Do I need to look? Let's look
I'll believe you.
I'm trying to find any Coen Brothers movie that I've watched, but I don't think I've seen anything. I'm a terrible
No Country
movie
for
watcher.
Old Men. Oh yeah, dude. Fucking love that movie.
Let's see.
I'm a pro movie watcher. It's depressing.
Yeah, it's produced by the Coen Brothers.
It's produced. I don't know. Produced.
I remember Keith talking about it, or maybe you talked about it in one of the Let's Plays about watching a movie.
Produce is just sitting down and watching movies. Money laundering.
Oh no, season 4 is out and has bad reviews.
Oh dang it!
I didn't know it was out. It just finished. Oh, it's in progress.
Come on, you need to.
Wow, the state of this. The state of the show is wildly changing.
It's 2020.
So it's an anthology show. So every season's a standalone. Although that might be less true over time. That's been a thing. I've been having fun watching like anthology shows where each season's kind of a different thing, but then they sometimes make it weird and start connecting them. In Fargo, seasons 1, 2, and 3 are all completely different storylines, but there'll be the connecting point of like, aha, see that character? That's the father of that character from last season, because like I think it was like season 2 or something was like they went back in time to a much earlier time, but it featured the same, like it was like the sheriff, like the female sheriff in the first season's dad was the sheriff in the second season, because they went back in time to his time, but he's played by a different actor because he's much younger, and that's the only real connecting thing. But it's like, it's just a different storyline, basically. Just kind of sort of connecting them, I guess. But American Horror Story, every single season is just straight up like a completely different setting with completely different characters, but played by the same actors again, because they use the same actors most seasons, so they just play different people completely. And it's like a different genre. Yeah, and it's like a different genre of horror. Like the first season was a haunted house, second one was like an insane asylum, third one was like witchcraft. They've done like a bunch of different things. They've done like an apocalypse and so on. But the weirdest fucking thing they've done is that they like 8 or 9 seasons into their anthology show, there's something like, what if this season all of the seasons are canon? And then just like all the characters from all the other seasons are all showing up in like a sequel season that's a sequel to every season they've ever made, and since in many cases multiple characters played by the same actor have survived their respective seasons, one actor will play like 5 characters that season because all the characters are still in existence, and it's like, what the fuck happened to this? The show's fucking batshit. It's a show that can't even lose me by being bad, because even its bad seasons are so fucking weird that I'm like, I mean, I'm not bored.
Dude,
I'm having fun.
I hate to tell you, Keith, I tried watching it. I thought it was so boring.
Yeah, I struggled to watch the first season, and I was like,
the first season is not a favorite of mine.
I didn't think it was scary.
The haunted house thing's not very interesting.
I didn't think it was interesting. Like I don't got time for this. I can watch go watch a movie or something. It's good. And I only invest 2 hours. And if it's something I don't like, it's like, oh, too bad. 2 hours is fine. But like, I can't watch 30 hours of something and decide I don't like it. That's a waste of a whole day.
But no, people who are looking to try American Horror Story, I'd recommend watching like Asylum or Roanoke.
I just have little faith in any kind of anything that's horror that's a TV show.
Yeah, and then
like generally doesn't.
And then some people would have fun with the one of the more recent seasons was the Jason inspired season, where it was a bunch of camp counselors and so on. And those are all standalone seasons where you don't need to watch previous ones, and they're the better ones. Whereas I think the first season's pretty weak, and I think Bitchcraft was just miserable. Sorry, or they didn't call the season. Wait, that was just the first episode. That was what they didn't call the season.
That sounds funny.
Yeah, they called the first episode Bitch. It was the witch season. I don't know what they called it specifically, but the first episode's named Bitchcraft, and specifically Netflix. This is a complaint about Netflix.
Was it Coven?
But like Netflix Coven, yeah.
I don't know why.
Netflix never remembers where you left off on something, or it'll remember too well because you click on an episode for a second there just to look at it for a second, but that's not really where you are. But it'll like remember that forever now or something, and like that all. And you can't tell Netflix to just forget about something. Like, hey, when are you going to continue watching this? And it's like, stop.
I already did.
Where do I click the button to go away? Because like if you just open like a movie just to like get a screenshot of a scene or something, and it's like, wow, when are you going to finish watching this movie? And it's like, I was never actually watching this movie.
It's always on like continue watching forever, but it's like, I don't want it to be like, I've just looked at stuff that like I was like, oh, this is heinous, I hate this, but I had to like remember that I tried watching it once because it'll be on like continue forever.
Yeah, so like
it's a permanent stain.
So like at some point I watched the first 2 seasons on Netflix, but then after that I would go and like buy them as they were coming out and watch them as opposed to waiting for them to come out on Netflix. So Netflix just for like I think a year was just telling me to like, when are you gonna watch Bitchcraft? And it's like, you're too late, Netflix. Just go away. It's like, no, you should go watch Bitchcraft now. Like season 3 is out. I'm like, yeah, I know. Season 8 is out. Shut up. Stop it, Netflix.
Yeah. Netflix keeps trying to get.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was gonna say it keeps trying to get me to watch Cuties, and I'm like, no, Netflix, don't do that.
Yep, that's concerning.
We know your demographic, Stephanie.
Yeah, what is that? What are you trying to say about me, Netflix?
I have 2 profiles. One is for anime, and one is for everything else. Because I don't want my anime one to get sullied. because otherwise it gets really disgusting where it's like, I see you watch this one like American cartoon, you want to watch all the American, like give me all the anime, don't do this.
Because you want to have a profile that like does a good job at like revealing to you all the anime that comes out so you can notice it, because otherwise stuff just comes to Netflix and you never know it exists.
And it's like, I'm sorry,
just didn't decide to show it to you.
I like Avatar: Last Airbender. That's my fault. But like you watch it, it's like, well, I've got a show for you, Nickelodeon SpongeBob. I'm like, I don't. Fuck, man. I just watched one Nickelodeon show on accident.
It's like
Sorry.
Netflix. You think there's a crossover here, but I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I agree. I wish there was like a. Like I only thumbs up anime shows and I thumbs down everything else it recommends that's not anime. And it like it still, it still goes like, well, what about this American show? Thumbs down.
It's like an old man. Like if I try to explain to my dad like the difference between like anime and like American cartoons, it's like, yeah, but they're all cartoons, right? It's like Netflix has the same like mindset where it's like somebody drew it and it's pictures and they put it together and it's the same. It's like, no,
you
it's
like
not.
video games,
the tone
right?
is definitely different.
Old
which is frustrating
games as a
because
concept.
they have an anime genre.
But,
like they have cartoons and kids.
That's all
and then
kids
anime.
Stuff,
and I'm like, if you have anime,
Netflix.
I want to like choose a category and go, that's the only thing I will watch on this on this profile. Don't recommend me anything else. And then I go to the front page and it's like, even for my anime, I go to the front page and like, oh, here's the newest Netflix show that came out. Here's Cuties. I'm like, sir, 100 degrees far off here. I don't even touch real life stuff on this channel. How did you have the audacity? And it's like, well, everybody else is watching it.
I think I think over the last 10 years, there has been like a serious move away from allowing people to discover their own stuff and just curating. The platforms will prioritize curation. Like I haven't used Steam to find new games in 2 or 3 years now because it's just impossible. Like you can go.
I don't even use Steam. Where you're like, what does this say about me? What is this platform saying about me? Like Netflix was like, hey, here's some shows, here's some things to watch. First up, I don't feel at home in this world anymore. Next up, the end of the fucking world. And then next up, I'm not okay with this. And it's like, all right, I think they have decided I like a specific thing. Those are all really good. Also, I might have already known this and then forgotten and then relearned it, but the end of the fucking world and I am not okay with this are both the same author.
We knew that, but
I think I just forgot and then relearned it.
I don't feel at home in this world anymore. You should watch. That's a film, right?
Yeah,
with Elijah Wood. It's fucking really so good. I found that on accident, and then now every once in a while I just find like a weird Elijah Wood film that his Daddy's Home, I think, places. Or Daddy. There's like one that's called Daddy something, and I was like, what the fuck, Elijah Wood? And I just sat there and watched it, and I was like, this is fucking really weird and interesting. And I sat there and watched it for like 2 hours. I'm like, delightful. Like, added to my brain forever.
No, I remember liking I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore because it vaguely had this feeling of like Breaking Bad and Coen Brothers films where they just write characters in a scenario and then just kind of see what the fuck happens, and usually just chaos ensues and it doesn't have a really concrete end goal.
You don't like this. It's hard to explain like the plot of a film like that because there's not really like a through line plot. It's more so just like things occur. Movies. Like there are really well written characters and then things happen around them and there's no point. Like that's the thing that kind of frustrates people about those kinds of movies. Is like, well, what's the point? It's like a John Green book full of murder. Things just happen in the world, and that's how the world works. Like you just are observing the lives of these people for 2 hours, and that's it. And I like that. I like that sort of like I get to be Ishmael for 2 hours.
What is your taste, Colonel? Because we know Andrews is anime.
I was thinking
that's all.
That's anime as a concept.
I was listening to you, Stephanie, describe the movies about like watching somebody's life for a little bit and that's it, and taking pleasure in that. Like that's a really interesting way of looking at any. Well, I mean, if the movies are like that, that looking at movies, I don't think I've ever watched any movie like that. Honestly, I think, unfortunately, I have been very unlucky with the movies I've watched. I have watched some interesting things, but in terms of movies, I'm more of a mainstream kind of person.
I'm like, I have a lot of empathy. Like, I have like that. I get a get off on empathy. So it's like
wonder if like movie recommendations should be our goal
and
next
music
episode.
Makes me feel stuff. It's like I just want to feel other people's feelings for a while. So when I watch things, I just like to do that.
I like that I feel the same way, but not for real life people.
Real life people are boring.
He doesn't handle on-screen actors very well.
I don't. I can watch like an anime where someone's like really heartfelt and sad. I'm like, oh my god, I feel really sad for that. And then someone's like, my mom died. I'm like, oh, get over it, dude. Come on, man. We all do it. Clap, clap. Pull yourself up.
Clap.
Should that be like our project for like next episode? Is like recommend 5 Netflix movies.
Sounds like a plan.
So like everyone make their list.
I will say that I am the same way in anime as well. I have very little tolerance for slice of life anime. I do enjoy some every once in a while, especially comedy. But
I don't know if slice of life's the right term for it or not. But I definitely just like, if an anime just gets me to like characters, then I'll just like see where their story goes and not care about like a season plot.
Like, well, you like Beastar?
Beastars
is kind of slice of life.
Beastars is just fucking wandering. Like I am reading. Like I have volume 8 now. It came in this week, and I'm just enamored with it. Like I'm just like, yeah, I want to see what happens next, and it's like there's no plot. These characters are just kind of doing the next thing over and over again, and just kind of going through their shit. And but I'm engaged with everything that's happening. And then Agretzko,
that's fun.
Agretzko was
that's technically, I think that's considered slice of life still. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's just anthropomorphic. You just like anthropomorphic slice of life.
Yeah. Fuck it.
I don't know what Gretzko is.
Yeah, one of my favorite video games is anthropomorphic slice of life. It's Night in the Woods.
Yeah, that is definitely.
Oh,
and that Garbage Night book you let me borrow
was also anthropomorphic
slice of life. Yeah, dude, Keith's got like a theme. I've got to the point where I know what Keith will like.
I literally made an anthropomorphic shelf on the bookshelf now.
It's just label it anthropomorphic shelf.
You like Poon Poon, didn't you? That's technically anthropomorphic.
That's very questionable. That's that's just a person with a filter over them to filter them out of existence.
It's you could relate.
That what furries are?
It could be you.
I've got one shelf that has like Beastars, Dorohedoro, Lackadaisy, Mouse, Black Sad, and so on. Just all together. Oh, and I now have Beyond the Western Deep, which is anthropomorphic, like hero's journey sort of style, like fantasy history sort of setting. It's like it's inspired by the kinds of stories like Warriors and Redwall and so on. So it's like the whole world is split into a series of countries that each of which is a different like species of animal person, basically, and then.
And does fights happen?
Then, like, Game of Thrones conflicts ensue, yeah?
Discrimination between peoples.
I'm trying to think, like, how many slice of life animal...
My favorite slice of life was the second season of Clanad.
Dude.
Specifically the second season.
Clanad.
So that was the only that's as far as I go with slice of life.
I'm a fucking fruits basket. Like that was the first manga I ever read.
I can't remember the name of that.
Boy, I love that stupid shit. Like,
have you been? Did you know they remade it?
Yeah, no, I watched the first season remade, but then I realized that they were all like, I don't know why it didn't occur to me, but it's like, oh, they're gonna translate it too. It's like, so now I gotta wait because I want to hear. Because when I first watched it, I listened to it was like when I first
English,
got into anime. So I had like a huge crush on the fucking cat guy, Kyo.
Oh, Kyo's great.
And so Kyo's like, I need to hear his voice in his voice, and so I'm actually waiting so I can like relive the experience again.
Season 2 is wrapping up, and then I think there's one more season, and that's it. And it'll be through the entire series.
I'm so excited to see the rest of it animated for the first time because, like, those books, I just look over them and cry. Like,
oh my god, it's been so good. I have all the manga, and it's been so frustrating because, like, the anime, it stopped at like halfway through the series, and was like, all right, that's it, we did it, guys. I was like, what the fuck?
Well, back in the day, it was like whole 26 episode run was like the standard. It was like, oh, we're gonna give like this manga a 26 episode run, and it was just like a common thing where I'd watch something in the last 26 episodes and I'm like, well, great, I have to read it further to see what's actually going to happen. But no, Fruit Basket was like so fucking romantic.
Yes,
love it.
Fruit Basket has so many good coming of age like situations, like overcoming parental expectations, overcoming abuse, like there's so much shit that Fruits Basket covers, and the anime's just like, oh yeah, but Kyo needs someone to love him. I don't there's other characters.
No, all the character stories were really good. I was rewatching it. I was watching the remake in Japanese, and one of the other people who live here was watching it downstairs, and I would just every time I'd watch an episode, I'd text him. I'm like, I'm crying again. Like, I'd text him every episode was about something really fucking depressing.
Wait, so they had to did they have to remake the anime because the first one was bad or something?
No, it's bad, but it's beloved. So they're remaking it because the series is beloved.
So it's like Full Metal Alchemist, where they're like it's beloved enough, but there's also an alternate way to tell the story.
Well, no,
so
they didn't finish it the first time because back in the day,
they didn't finish.
They just gave you 26 episodes, but like the story continued on in the manga, and they didn't ever animate it, and so now they're animating it.
Like a good example is, imagine if they left off in Full Metal Alchemist after what is it? After the
no spoilers.
I'm talking about the old. I'm talking about the old one, not.
They're both spoilable.
Okay.
They are. Yeah.
Like, yeah. There's like it. Basically, they left off on a really big plot point. Because you get a resolution in like a minor arc for a character, but there's still like 3 other characters that don't get resolutions for their problems, and you just are expected to just deal with that, and you're like, no, this is not good.
Yeah, it's just whenever anything cancels when it's not supposed to.
That happens with big anime as well, like Cardcaptor Sakura and Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, Rurouni Kenshin.
Yeah, they just stopped midway through.
Kenshin was still going, right? Well, no, Inuyasha completed.
Did it finally?
No, the manga finished.
Inuyasha's coming back.
Oh well, yeah, but the show like stopped at a certain point.
Yeah.
It's like we can't make 1,000 bajillion episodes. We're gonna stop.
Yeah, well, I thought they did, because they did like a couple of movies too.
They did it for Naruto, though.
Speaking of canceled things, Venture Bros was just canceled.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
I
thought it was canceled before, and then it came back, and now it's canceled again.
Well, yeah, it just got fully like canceled, and people are freaking out about it.
I liked that show, the first season, but I liked it better before it started getting to the point where I'd have to watch all the episodes in order to understand, because I was watching it on TV, on Adult Swim, and so in the first season it's like you can watch it and there's not like there's obviously like an underlying through line, but there's like you didn't have to watch them in order to think the episodes themselves were interesting. But it's like I got to a point where there was so much, like I caught it like 2 seasons later. I'm like, what the fuck's happening? I don't understand these characters' relationships with each other anymore, and it's too far apart. But I always liked the style of humor, and I always liked the art style to be like reminiscent of like the old kind of like Scooby-Doo-ish, Hardy Boys-ish. Like, I liked the style of the show a lot.
I'm glad everything changed. I'm just thinking about like growing up and how so much television was built around just being able to watch random episodes and so on, because that's how you would feasibly experience it. But now that you can watch stuff from the beginning, it's really hard to imagine like
going back.
Like I never really would choose to watch something that was completely episodic, or is that the word for it?
Yeah, no, yeah. I remember I was kind of drunk. I was kind of toasted.
Yeah.
I was at someone's house, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna go to let's go to sleep. Like, what do you want to put on?" And I was like, "Something episodic." And then they're like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Something episodic." And I had to sit there and explain episodic, because the thing is when I don't want to pay attention, I'll put on something like Seinfeld or something. Like, I don't have to watch it in order, but it's like fun.
Oh. Yeah.
And I like to fall asleep to stuff. So it's like I don't want to have to be able to pay attention to things.
But the thing is, television was made specifically with that in mind as well, because it was so like there is
you
a
couldn't
shift.
watch a show from front to beginning.
Syndication is a big part of it too.
Oh yeah, like Doctor Who is like one of the main holdouts. That's like genre fiction, but still episodic, as opposed to like because like a lot of the episodic shows are sitcoms nowadays. It's like you still kind of built that way, like family dramas and so on. But like,
don't you have procedurals still, like cop shows?
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff?
those still exist.
Yeah, I was gonna say like reality. I like reality shows.
Oh, yeah,
I like
obviously reality TV.
Reality TV,
but like sci-fi.
Cops is considered reality TV. Like that's reality TV. Yeah. No, that's what I mean. Like stuff like that.
But generally
Judge Judy, like
scripted,
shit like that.
Scripted like action or sci-fi or like genre fiction is always almost always like a continual story. And one of the only outliers I can think of anymore is just Doctor Who continues to be this thing where you just watch a random episode, and the only thing you'll be confused by is like, which companions are these? Because those companions just be around for like 3 seasons, and you can watch each episode episodically. But that's just how the show works. It just has it'll just have their attempt to have a through line to each season is always just to like introduce a nebulous thing in the first episode of the season, and then just kind of have 30 seconds of hinting at it every episode, but it's not attached to the plot of the episode, and then the finale is about that thing. That's the most through line that a season of Doctor Who has.
One of my favorite shows ever, which is like very underappreciated in my opinion, was the show Moral Oral, which was on Adult Swim. It's a claymated show that was like parodying Davy and Goliath, which was like a religious show for kids. But it's like, the thing that was funny is like, so that show you can watch on an episodic way, most of it at least. But there was a point where he has a little brother, and then during one episode, the parents are really negligent, and they accidentally switched the little brother with the next door neighbor's little brother, and the next door neighbors move away in that episode. So from that point on, his brother that shows up is not his actual brother, and he's the only person that notices it. And so every once in a while, he'll be like, that's not Shapey. Like he keeps telling his mom, like his mom
creepy.
The mom calls the kid the name, and then he looks at the mom, he's like, that's not him. And they never like, I mean, it's like not important, but that's how you know. It's like, oh, I know what part I'm in because the brother switched, and the parents just never really notice it.
That is super creepy.
I guess
that show's really dark. Like it's really bad.
God.
That's like season 1 of Rick and Morty, where they establish like, by the way, this is all a new world from this point forward. And it's like basically never acknowledged, but it's a continued like background detail of like, the world you started the show in is gone now, and now we're in a new one that's similar and identical.
I think Doctor Who has the same a couple of times.
Doctor Who's fucky. There's a lot of things you don't want to think about too much, or it makes you worried about the entire thing. Same thing with Star Trek and the teleporters, which like Star Trek's also like another.
Worrying?
Which thing?
I mean, I think it's just the teleporters. That's just a normal part of their lives. I don't think it's worrying.
The teleporters are a horrifying question.
I mean, yeah, but I'm assuming that the people in that world are aware of what it does, and they've agreed to that. I think people are like, oh, we invented teleportation, but we don't know how it works. Like, what?
They know how it works. There's one person who acknowledges it more than anyone else, which makes it even creepier, which is Bones. Bones from the original series, the Doctor, he refuses to be teleported anywhere, and they continue that through to when like the actor as an old man cameos in Next Generation, and they put old makeup on him to make him even older because the time jump's bigger than the real life gap. They have to bring him onto the Starship Enterprise in Next Generation on a shuttle because he won't teleport, because he's terrified of this device, because he's in my camp where he's like, that's just killing you and cloning you. That's just killing you.
That's the existential question.
Yeah,
Ray Bradbury style horror right there.
It's a real fucked up. The creepiest thing about it is how it goes almost entirely unacknowledged by most of the show, and it's a show that goes on for like 1,000 episodes when you combine all the different shows together end to end.
That's what I mean, though. Like people are aware of how it happens, and they just don't care.
They just decided that continuity.
I don't think they've internalized it. I think they've kind of.
There's literally a guy who won't
people are
use
really
it.
good at ignoring shit.
Well, yeah, that guy.
I like that question a lot.
That guy's the one that's like really. That's the one that's thinking about it. But like, I think most of the cast, they just kind of don't think about it, and they just kind of push it away because if they think about it, it's uncomfortable, and a lot of people just kind of suppress thoughts that are uncomfortable by just not engaging with them.
Then that to me is consent. Like if you're not willing to acknowledge the question, like
let me ask you, Keith, what makes it killing you and cloning you elsewhere? Is it the fact that you
literally cease to exist?
Mm-hmm.
But like the computer scans you, and it creates like a data backup of you. Then it literally atomizes you like it killed you with a death ray, and then it creates a copy of you from scratch based on the data it made in the transporter or on the planet. like, or vice
it's a
versa.
perfect copy, right?
And there have literally been moments in the show where 2 copies of the same person exist at the same time because part of this process got fucked up, and there's other parts in the show where they fuck up and they lose somebody because they copy somebody and then they lose, then like the data gets corrupted and they don't come out the other side. There's several like bad transporter episodes that make the whole show an existential crisis.
Let's not go into the
acknowledged outside of those episodes.
Let's not go into the really screwed up parts, though, because otherwise, I one step at a time. So, what I'm asking you is this: if the cloning process happened at the same time, like theoretically, it can happen immediately, like instantaneously. It never really ceased to exist.
No version of cloning will not be killing you. The only way transportation cannot be killing you is if it's World of Warcraft rules where they literally make a portal that you walk
Star
through.
Trek. I'm talking
if
Star
you
Trek
walk through
rules.
a portal, then you're fine. If they're in any way teleporting you, they're just killing you and making a copy of you that thinks that nothing happened.
I know. I'm talking Star Trek rules here. So my question is,
there's no good version.
I know. No, but the thing is,
the only person who can teleport without dying is Q. Because he can.
Wait a second.
Q can just blink around of his own free will because he's like a deity.
Hey y'all, I hate to interrupt. I'm gonna be right back. I gotta go.
He's played by the guy that was in season 2 of Breaking Bad.
Can there be
airline
2
guy.
Qs?
No, but like what I'm asking is this, Keith: is it the continuity of your existence that is the issue, or is the place of your existence that is the issue that makes it?
Oh, it's continuity.
Okay, so if it is the continuity,
I know that you're going to bring up the thing like, what about when you go to sleep? Like, aren't you dying every night?
No, not the sleep.
Like
the sleep is complicated.
Is it?
Although it's sort of. There's an easier one.
Does your brain turn off?
No. What happens when you actually die and get resurrected?
Where?
Not in real life. Like, for example,
like how would I feel if I died and came back?
Yeah, like there's medical situations where people die. Like the resurrection.
You're still the same person.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like you're the same person, but there was a moment where you were
you're not the same person when you get teleported. You literally are broken down atom by atom and moved somewhere else. That means that every part of you doesn't exist.
You're talking about a body that stopped working and then started working again. Like there is a continuity to there. It's a weird edge case that might bring up some existential things, but it's also not a thing you consent to.
Yeah,
you don't consent to die and come back to life. But going into a teleporter is a choice, and it's a choice I would not make, and I'd be very, very existentially disturbed if somebody teleported me against my will in that universe.
I'm not saying, that would definitely be very, I'm not.
Which is a thing that happens a lot, including the bones.
Oh, he gets teleported against his will?
There's like multiple times I think where he's like very unhappy that he's been teleported. I think.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I haven't watched the entire original show, but I think it happens in one of the movies.
There's a game that I played a while ago called Soma. I think you played it as well, Keith.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, the Soma is about this topic. It's about the teleporter problem. Topic.
It's so I love thinking about it. Honestly, it's so interesting because because it mixes everything together. It mixes the ship of Theseus issue of your body being made up of different cells than it was 10 years ago. It mixes the fact that your identity is tied to where you are, not just to who you are, and so teleportation itself can change your identity even if it didn't work like it does in Star Trek. There's so many.
Oh yeah, no. Soma's built entirely around the transporter problem. Like that's a horror game where like. For people that disagree with me on like the idea that even is a horror concept with a teleporter, I'm like, so like you played Soma and like it just was nothing to you? It was just a game with monsters. It's like that's not supposed to be the scary part of. I mean, it's a scary part of Soma. It's what sells it. But then you play Soma and it's like you have all these horrifying sequences, like for spoilers for Soma, but like there's like. One of the most horrifying things that happens in Soma is when the woman who's manipulating you the entire game, because she has an end goal that she needs to get through, and she knows that you're not going to really be emotionally prepared for what's going to have to happen to you to get through this journey, so she's just going to kind of not tell you along the way about the fucked up things that's going to happen to you. Oh, she's so calm and calculated in that game. She knows exactly what happens. She knows that she's not real. And she's
spoiling this game for people.
She is real.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but she is real though. So she's just a different type of person.
She exists, but she's not that person.
If you're challenged,
she specifically deceives you with the intention that you are a person. She is a person.
You go to her.
I didn't have that read.
You go chase her through You go chase her throughout Soma because you think that she's the last surviving human besides you that exists.
No, you don't. She never tells you that.
Yeah, but that's what you think.
But but she doesn't clarify that either.
The protagonist 100% thinks that.
Well, you didn't ask though, right?
Yeah,
you don't ask.
My read is that my read is that that's the game playing the player rather than
she also continually says,
her
"I need you to help me," which is not something.
But the thing is, she's a real person.
But
even
not
though
anymore.
She's in a computer.
She's not a real person anymore.
She's real. No. She's not the human that she was.
She's just not human. It's the question: if your consciousness, whatever it is, could be uploaded into a computer, would you stop being a person because you're in a computer?
Well, that's like define real. Like define real. That's the problem.
You wouldn't be human, but you'd be a person.
But that's you'd
be like I'm in the camp where I still think that Data in Star Trek is a human. I'm not a human. Sorry, a person and an individual that should have rights and so on.
I don't know. I don't think that. I'm saying that you're not. That's not the same person.
Yeah,
that's
so
not a person.
That's a different issue.
She's a person. She has agency, but she's not the person that she is a copy of.
I'm not saying that. Yeah, I'm not saying that she's the same person.
Specifically, the protagonist of the game is in this panicked alien state, and he doesn't know what's going on. And it's a horror game and everything, and she's trying to find what he thinks is the last remaining human. And he gets there, and it's like basically a CRT television dumped over on its side with her face on it, and she's talking to her because she's also just another AI. And this, I think, this is
great though.
And I think this is before he's ever fully acknowledged that he's also just a machine with his own consciousness copied into it. Right. So he's still not himself.
I think it's such a
he eventually sees a mirror.
It's that's the best. It's one of my favorite moments in gaming.
It's a great example of like that idea of like people just suppressing things that make them uncomfortable, because he just spends the rest of the game not really acknowledging the fact that he's not himself because he can't process it.
Yeah.
At no point does he look down at his arms and realize
he sometimes does.
He looks in the mirror once in the game and then tries to never look at himself ever again.
He sometimes has some reactions about his hands, but it's not very common. But I think what the game really does well there, up until the point, and including the point where he looks in the mirror, is it teaches you that you as a player, or you're playing a person, and that I don't remember her name, but the lady that you're helping at the beginning, that she's also a person, and you learn that she's a person until you find her. And there's no reason, like, of course, if you have the belief that machines can't be people, then you are say, okay, well, you're not a person because you're obviously a machine. But that's why the game works so well, because then you're thinking that yourself are playing a person, but then you find out you're playing a machine.
Yeah, and the game constantly tests you because you keep finding survivors that are different states of survivors. Like, and almost all of them have an ethical quandary tied to them. Like, there's a weird sort of floating drone that kind of chats with you late in the game that's kind of in an underwater area, and you can like rip something out of him and kill him in order to solve your problem.
He's pretty upset when you do that.
Or there's a robot that's like that's like malfunctioning, and he's like on some kind of like electrical track, and you can like solve the puzzle and get through, but it'll keep torturing him. But he's also like just a robot. But then you also literally encounter like there's like a euthanasia case with a still flesh and blood human and so on, and there's like all these confusing things
that game
to process through.
Genius.
But when I was talking about the horrifying idea, like. The ending is one of them too. But when I was talking about how the game just goes straight faced into like the horrifying idea of the transporter problem, there's the part where she manipulates you without really telling you what's going to happen and so on. She's like, "We need to transfer you to a new body so that you can." Like you're not going to be able to survive that deep underwater in this body, so you need to transfer to a new body. And so they go to this location where she has you sit down on this thing, and you go to sleep and black out, and you wake up in a different room. And you're in a new body. It's like, okay, now we can survive the underwater thing. But then off, sort of forward to your right, you hear your voice coming from another room. And he's like,
saying it didn't work.
I don't feel any different. What's going on here? And then she like shuts him up and like shuts him down and everything. And it's like, for a moment there, the original you was still there, making it clear that you are just a copy that was like data backed up into this other thing. But the person that you've been playing this whole game was not actually transferred from one to the other. He was still there, and from his perspective, the game just ends there.
But
and you're now playing a new character.
Genius.
No, he doesn't die there. But canonically,
I knew it was smart.
It doesn't die there. Yeah, it's so smart, such a smart game. But I didn't have the read that Keith is having. My read was that what was the name of the Simon? Was the main
Simon?
Character?
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah. My read was that Simon is not smart enough to know what's going to happen in advance, so he reacts very poorly every time. So I was frustrated with the main character because I was just calling him an idiot.
He's not very smart, but he's also not really. He's also kind of in shock, and he's in a new setting with no reason to even know that he was going to be in this new setting, and it's horrifying. And he's clinging on to any hope he can, and he's willfully ignoring things that make himself uncomfortable. But also, Catherine is because she clearly got a read on him really quickly. She's avoiding explaining things that he might not do if he knew about it. So stuff like that, she does not tell him what's going to happen to him at all. So he goes in there and essentially goes into her trap because she's just using him to her own ends because she's doing her whole save humanity thing, and she doesn't really care about him beyond his usefulness to being able to do things because, frankly, he's got legs and she doesn't because Catherine's in full Cortana mode where she was just stuck in a CRT basically and needed the one moving person that wasn't a monster to solve her problems or nothing goes right. But yeah, the horrifying idea at the end of this is that the idea of quote unquote saving humanity is just successfully launching a satellite into space that has a cloud server that has a bunch of copies of people's personalities and data, and they all live there in a vague heaven that's just in a simulation.
And that's what a lot of people predict will be our next evolutionary move. Human beings are kind of at we're at we're at a stopping point as far as our bodies.
it's the only uplifting episode of Black Mirror.
We've reached our peak form.
Bernardino? Was that what it was?
San Bernardino.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll die out before we ever actually evolve in a way that
makes us stop destroying everything.
That makes our bodies any different. So it's they predict that our next evolutionary move will be it'll be a manufactured one, and they predict cloud hive mind is our next big leap.
Have you ever played Soma, Stephanie?
No.
So for context, this game starts with you having a doctor's appointment to get a brain scan because something's wrong with you. So you go in and you get the brain scan and you're in the brain scan machine, and then you wake up in Rapture, but way worse.
I'm aware of the setting.
Bioshock
I've seen
Rapture.
it, and Soma was one of those games I always wanted to play.
Yeah,
but
you should definitely play it, even with the spoilers. I think it might make the game better. Honestly.
That's how little context. That's how little context Simon has. He just wakes up in a horror movie. He literally is at that point he's is this the test? Am I hallucinating all of this? Is this a dream, or have I been brought here somehow? Was I kidnapped? But over the course you're realizing oh, you're playing a fucking copy of Simon that has survived all this long. The real Simon died to his illness 200 years ago.
The whole
died normally. You'll later find out. It's just beautiful. I love that game. It's so awesome.
The whole sentience equaling. I don't. Okay,
that's my
it's weird. Okay, it's weird. It's weird for me because I'm really pragmatic, right? And I'm also a person that I'm a definite atheist. I believe that after you die, there's nothing. And then it's one of those weird things that I think about anyway, where it's well, if somebody dies, then they don't care anymore because they can't exist to care anymore, at least in my viewpoint. So the whole there's an ethical issue with something killing off an old version of you and then making a copy and you existing. But a part of me almost wants to say, well, what the fuck doesn't matter? That thing doesn't care anymore because it doesn't exist anymore. There's a very diabolical aspect of me that it just says on paper, if you take the absolute humanity out of it, it doesn't matter because that person can't exist anymore to care that it happened to them. And I exist now.
Yeah,
but consent also transcends.
That's the issue with the transporter problem. Is you care, you exist right now. Now go on the transporter.
Yeah, but
would you like to delete yourself so somebody else can continue your story?
If I knew, if I thought that I was going to go in there and close my eyes and never open them again, because that's how my story would end. then I selfishly would want to keep living, despite whether even if I was a copy or whatever. Like, I don't care where my origins were. I don't care. I just care about me because I want to keep living despite me. I could be a robot. I can be whatever. All I know is that my goal is to keep existing, regardless to why that might be or who I am now. But if I thought that I'd go into a transporter and I would I would close my eyes and that's it, then I wouldn't want to do that. Because I'd be selfish. I'd say, fuck other future me, clone self doesn't need to exist. I'm going to run away.
These sort of issues for me, I sort of changed my perspective on... Well, thinking about this sort of changes my perspective on life a little bit. I've thought about it plenty in the past. I think the interesting thing about it is thinking of yourself as a... right now, we are only the people that have lived up to today. Our existence tomorrow doesn't really change who we are today, right? Like, maybe knowing what is going to happen tomorrow changes, obviously, but there are things that are going to happen tomorrow that we don't know. They don't change who we are today, right now. So that's why I personally think that the transporter in Star Trek is, objectively speaking, killing somebody in one place and putting them back up in the other. But that doesn't necessarily have any meaning, because the person who died, they were only ever going to be the person up to the point where they died, and the person who...
No?
I mean, because, yes, we are...
The teleporter's a conscious choice, though. Like, Bones' example is, like, there are other ways to get onto a planet. We don't have to, like, kill ourselves just to do this.
What I'm saying is it doesn't change anything. You dying and immediately getting resurrected in another place doesn't change anything, because you remember exactly the same thing.
Well, yeah, in the whole existential wild thing, on a geological scale, nothing matters.
They don't remember that they died, right?
No, I mean for yourself. Yeah, you never really died.
That's the thing, though. Define yourself.
But yes, exactly. That's why it's
legally
such an interesting.
That's
such an interesting.
Legally, no one notices a difference between you and the clone.
But you don't either.
Yeah, you do.
How do you do that?
From your perspective,
because your perspective, when you get into the teleporter, you immediately get atomized. You feel the atomization.
Okay, but I didn't know that.
I mean, from your perspective,
imagine if it didn't. Imagine if it didn't feel the atomization.
It's like the clone doesn't, because the clone has that part of its memory removed and then is put onto the planet before that.
We have to define two perspectives. So, from the perspective of the person coming out of the teleporter, you went into a teleporter and then just kind of faded away and then came back somewhere else. And you have that continuity of memory and you think that everything's fine.
And that's why you'll get in it again. That's why you'll get in it again.
Yes, if you don't question it, you'll just be like, yeah, teleporter's fine. It's harmless. It's the safest way to travel.
It got me here. It got me here already.
But from the perspective of the person going into the teleporter, you go into a teleporter and then nothing happens.
There's no
perspective.
But that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying. There's never any perspective either way. Because you're never the person who is going to happen tomorrow. You're the person tomorrow. What I'm saying is, that's why I started my example.
It's like extra lives in Mario. Like all the other deaths that happen, like from their perspective, it's not a great time. But from the player's perspective, like, haha, I got 5 more lives.
It's like Super Meat Boy, where you finish a level and then you have to watch all the versions of yourself die as one of them makes it through. If you use a teleporter,
all of those other Meat Boys are canon, and they all died that way.
See, it's like okay, this is it's an odd branch to think, but so women who give birth, right? They have kids, but there's a part of your brain that actually has evolved to make it so you don't remember it. You downplay how much it hurt afterwards. Your brain tells you that it didn't really hurt that bad, so you don't remember how much it hurts until you do it again, and you're like, what the fuck, why did I do this again? And so people always make that argument, like, oh man, this is a stupid one, but it's like getting kicked in the balls obviously hurts more because women keep having kids and men try not to do that. And it's like, well, okay, first of all, one of them has like a very clear through line purpose that has a huge benefit. But then also you don't really remember how much it hurts because you're too infatuated with this kid you now have, and your brain actually tells you to not remember it for the purpose of perpetuating the human race. And I feel like it's
I remember every kick in the ball. I remember those.
Your brain wants you to remember that. Your brain's like, don't fucking do that again.
I think
your brain says have more kids though, because that's good for the human race.
I think most dudes on the earth remember the last time they sat down wrong.
Oh yeah, that's.
I don't have that problem.
Didn't need this hour.
Yeah, I don't envy you guys.
I'm getting kicked while I'm down, and it's by me.
It's like
bikes are easy.
Yeah, it's like a 50-50 gamble. You're either like, wow, this is really convenient to have, or why is this here? Like,
I never had a bike problem. Yeah,
I always imagine it being inconvenient, but whatever.
It
strap it down.
That's the thing. It's just like breasts. I can't contemplate the annoyance of it all. Like
you can contemplate it.
No, I just put a shirt on. Like I just put a shirt on and I live my life. I don't think about like, what if it's too small? Is it gonna like pull on a certain part? No, it's just I just put a shirt on.
I think the only real downside is like, I can't go to the beach or I can't like just go outside and like mow the lawn and then take my shirt off like all you guys can just do.
Like that
sucks.
I can just do a lot of stuff without thinking.
Like I need to put on pants to mow. I
think everybody universally doesn't just take their pants off. Like I think we all have a. Well, okay, then you do. But I think most people.
Still hot in my room. Okay,
you can make it.
Not right now. I have pants on right now.
You can make it.
But I mean, that's the thing. Is like everybody's got something they want to cover.
I think Kiki just started throwing up.
Oh no, Kiki! She's gonna be all right.
Steffi just walked her out of the room. They made it that far at least, so now it's not. At least it's not going to happen to me.
It's not your problem now.
But let's see. We've only done one question. We're really efficient.
We have another one that's
we haven't finished the question.
Stephanie hasn't said anything.
Well, now she's gone, but I haven't actually explained what basalt columns are.
Oh.
So I guess I might as well do that.
I mean,
to wrap up the question.
I figured everybody on your channel knows by now.
No, that's not. When you're when your whole YouTube channel is about having like 14,000 videos and whatnot, it's so fragmented what anyone knows.
Yeah.
So I guess part one of a podcast is a decent place to cover this again. The quintessential question. Like, what's the fuck's up with the basalt columns and shit? The column you're joining. So I was a geology major. I have a Bachelor of Science in Geology. It was very useful and got me so many places in life, like here, where it's super important and that it becomes a meme. So I went to school for 5.5 years to develop a half-hearted meme that people associate with me now. In particular, which class was this? Probably volcanology, actually. I think it was in volcanology. We had a presentation. It was a particular format where we had to do like this presentation on a paper, and then a week later we had to turn in the paper. So I think the idea was that we would use the feedback of the presentation to revise the paper and so on, and then turn in that report in that form and get graded on both of them in different ways.
That's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, so I ended up doing... I did a variety of different presentations over the course of that whole thing. Like I did one on Stibnite at one point, one on Oxbow Lakes. That was during sedimentology, I think, or geomorphology or something, discussing what Oxbow Lakes are and that whole interesting idea. Which I think that stuff's neat. And generally speaking, I was always way better at remembering structural information. So like I did really well in structural geology, but I didn't do great in mineralogy, where it was all about like recognizing minerals and remembering the long list of like signifiers that you'd use to do each one. And it's like, oh, this one is refractive under polarized light, and you have to look at it under a polarized microscope, and if it turns black, that means it's this and not that. And
there's polarized minerals? That's cool.
Yeah, there's minerals where under a slide they look different in regular light or polarized light, and that's a whole trippy
really cool.
thing.
So
we had these electron microscope, not like petrographic microscopes that had a bunch of different like slides, and like the big sciencey ones where you like rotate it and a different lens is pointing at the material, and then you'd rotate it between a bunch of different ones like a Swiss Army knife. That was I took mineralogy and petrology and so on. And a lot of that was really complicated stuff that I could never really remember and involved lots of flashcards. But then I had a mineralogy test where I spent like 3 days on it with flashcards trying to memorize like 80 chemical formulas, and ultimately didn't really succeed. Still, it drove me fucking crazy.
That sort of test should really be done with books next to you.
The sort of test shouldn't fucking exist, because all of the information of the entire I wasted a week trying to prepare for this test.
Yeah.
When all I have to do is just take one piece of paper with me the rest of my life that lists all these things. They're just chemical formulas.
That's what you do in your professional life as well.
Rote memorization's a stupid thing to test. Concepts are things you test, and understanding and so on. So I hated that idea. But a lot of the stuff that really stuck with me were the presentations I did. I did in paleontology. I did one on the domestication of wolves, which is why I know a lot of weird things about like piebald coat patterns and neotenization and so on. That was the single longest and most detailed report I've ever done, I think, with the most research. I spent an entire summer break on it, basically. But I did a presentation on oxbow lakes, which is the idea of, like, you know how a stream meanders?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have the faster a stream is going, the straighter it is, and the slower it is, the more wavy it gets, and it actually progressively gets more and more wavy. Like all of those U's that are pointing outward keep going further and further in that direction due to how the water flows, and eventually it'll become so inconvenient for the water to go that long ass way around in that giant bow that it'll just cut itself off and find a shorter path. Via like a particular flood or something, for example, a new path we made where it's like you have this giant horseshoe shape, and the two ends of the horseshoe are close enough together that a flood will just connect them, and then all the water just takes that path, and so the leftover space just becomes this like horseshoe shaped lake that just gets abandoned by the original water source because a more convenient source gets connected, basically. So like there's stuff like that I just remember so well, even though I pretty much, like, in many cases because I procrastinate, but also because I can be really efficient when I'm under the pressure for this stuff. I would literally write the entire presentation, make the poster board, and write the entire essay and report in the span of like 24 hours. And I'd just be like, this is fine. We're good. One of my kind of mortifying ones was the one for basalt columns, because I got that topic and I knew the paper wasn't due yet, so I wasn't that motivated. So the day of my presentation, I just bought a poster board, went to my college campus computer lab 2 hours before class started, and just started researching basalt columns from scratch right there, and then just drew my structural diagram with Sharpies on the poster board as my presentation board, and then just I kind of winged it from memory what I had learned so far, and just got to the presentation that way. So it was pretty funny.
Man, that's next level, honestly.
No, school was always really easy for me. It was kind of weird. I'm like, I never really learned tactics and disciplined ways of dealing with stuff because I would just fucking wing it and get away with it every time.
When I started university, the first semester, I knew how to study. I was pretty not callous is probably not the word, but I didn't study very hard in high school or anything. But when I got to university, I knew how to organize my stuff. And for the first semester, I took notes, all the notes in school. Every day I would write those down at home and just summarize them, and then I would have my notes all nice and tidy. And honestly, it wasn't that much work. It just required consistent, every day a little bit of time. And that was the best semester that I had in terms of scores. And then at the end of that semester, after the scores were out, I decided that it wasn't worth it. So I just started doing the same as you did. Because, winging it is easy, and it's not that much of a difference, honestly.
You just kind of get through it a lot of it that way.
Yeah, but I'm just going to leave her outside for a little bit.
She made it outside?
Yeah.
Yay! I wonder do you think she got something?
I don't think so. She doesn't usually,
Just like a weird moment.
Yeah, she might have been outside eating grass, like, how dogs do that stupid shit.
Yeah.
I had this...
Cats do that too.
Yeah, it's supposed to be for digestion, but the thing is that the grass that you find outside in people's yards is actually really serrated, so it scratches up their stomach and makes them throw up.
Yeah.
Like, they think that they're going out there and eating like wild grass. I'm like, dude, you live in suburbia. You're just eating stuff that's going to hurt you.
These self-medicating jerks just going around.
I always think of that H Bomber guy video where he's like, it's like you could just go out and eat grass. No one's stopping you. But then he kind of almost puts it in his mouth. He's like, grass has actually silicon in it, which can permanently fuck up your teeth. Don't even do this as a joke. Yeah. Like he just cuts it off and doesn't do it.
Yeah, smart dog out there eating grass. Idiot.
Throwing up's weird though. Sometimes it just do, and you're like, I don't know why, but here we are. We were at a tabletop.
Usually, night. I know why I'm throwing up. What? Like usually, I'm pretty aware.
I throw up really rarely.
I haven't thrown up in
that's good.
Which it's good, but No, we had a tabletop day at Marty's house at one point, and I just had to excuse myself and then just go throw up. And it was loud, and everyone could hear it apparently. So it was like awkward. And he like turned on music to like drown it out or something. And I just came back out. And I'm like, yo, yeah, I'm fine. What's up? Because I wasn't sick. I don't know what happened. I was just like, I don't know if like I ate other people's cooking, so maybe like something was weird somehow, or maybe I didn't drink enough water that day. I don't know what happened. I just maybe your body, and then I was fine.
Maybe your body just noticed that you were gonna be sick, but then you know what? I'm gonna throw up instead.
Like once a year, I have like an unexplained puking incident where I'm like, I don't know, man. I felt it coming for like 10 minutes, and so it's like sometimes you just have that like building like you start for me like you start like salivating weirdly.
Oh yeah,
and you're like, oh, you can definitely tell. Yeah, it's coming. It's like something's coming, but I'm like, I don't think I can stop it, but I also don't know why it's happening. And that's like system. That's like once a year for me.
Every time I've thrown up, which is like 5 times in my entire life.
Yeah, that sounds about right for me as well.
I would have guessed higher, honestly.
No, I've gone like I think the longest I went was 15 years without vomiting.
Wow.
It's because I just don't put myself in the situation where I can. I don't eat strangers' food. I don't generally.
I've been eating the same microwave pizza at 3 p.m. every day for the last 75 years.
That's why, if you watch me, I eat everything consistently. If it doesn't make me sick, I'll keep eating it. Yeah. So, like, how am I going to throw up unless I literally pulled the worst batch of a thing possible?
Yeah.
But even still, I will suppress it to the point where my body's like, fine, I have to get it out in a different way. Because I'll just if I feel sick, I just won't do it.
That's not the trick. That's usually not the point of throwing up. Usually, you specifically want to get rid of it, and every other option involves processing it, which is bad.
I found out there are a few tricks that you can use to stop yourself from throwing up. Yeah,
choke it down.
You can one of the good ones is whistling. So if you got to throw up, you just keep whistling, and I can whistle for a long time, and so my body's like, you have to throw up. It's like I'm not going to do it.
No,
and
I'm whistling. Just can't do
it. Smiling is one of the things. Is it can suppress your gag reflex. There was a
that sounds like a learned behavior, actually.
Yeah, this sounds like a nice tip.
I read like a trivia thing where like if you smile, it can stop you from like gagging or throwing up or whatever. And so like what specifically
is that why everyone always smiles when they look at me?
I employed this to win a bet. Because it was like when we were every
this
time
is getting interesting
without the actual context. Every time I add more of this, it sounds more questionable. But no, it's like we were all teenagers, so we kept going on the Gravitron over and over and over again. And then the bet was who could go on it the most times before they actually throw up, and I won because I was just smiling the whole time. So I was just spinning on the Gravitron. That
explains why roller coasters never make me sick, because I smile uncontrollably because I love them.
Yeah, that was actually, an experience. We went to Six Flags, and on every like roller coastery thing and scrambled eggs and so on, I was like lurching and my guts felt like they were gonna come out and so on. I'm like, why does this thing just throw you?
This is fun.
And she's like, and like her arms are in the air waving around, and she's like just giggling the entire time. Like it basically sounds like that. And and she's just fine. I'm like, we're having completely different reactions to this. Because I felt like scrambled eggs. I didn't love that.
I love scrambled eggs. I just call it scrambled eggs because Roller Coaster Tycoon, because that's what they call it. And so there's no other name for that type of ride. It's scrambled eggs.
Once you hit a certain velocity, it makes me feel like physically uncomfortable in a way where I'm like, I don't know if this is worth it.
No, I did like that. I did like the bungee jumping thing at like Great America, where they pull you up super high. You pay extra money for it, and they drop you. Like I'm not afraid of any of that.
I just want to go on the lazy river rafting ride where we're all in a big tube and it spins and we get wet.
Keith is like
the one,
like an exhausted dad on a weekend trip. Where he's like, "Look, I'm taking that ride.
The rides the rides that fit like 4 to 8 people, and they're sitting in a circle on like a raft, and it just kind of goes down a river and bounces around.
Yeah, they have
that one. I want that one.
I like those too.
Roller Coaster Tycoon has an entire genre for those.
Yeah,
they're clearly popular because the lines.
What is it called? I was trying to remember that too. It's called
I think they're like called calm rides.
It's a whole type.
Unexciting.
Unexciting. The lame ones.
Oh yeah, but on the basalt column topic, like I improv the whole. I pretty much just improvised the entire presentation based on like 2 hours of research I did that morning. Then went home and wrote the actual report over the next couple of days and did fine on that and so on. But then that kind of implanted in my head, because of all the geologic concepts that come up, that one isn't actually discussed that much in geology because it doesn't have any larger significance to build on the way that you kind of build a class, like where you're progressing through concepts. So it's kind of a trivia point, but it made it really sealed it in my mind as a specific feature that was worth thinking about. So then when I was playing Dragon Age Inquisition for my Let's Play channel in like 2013 or 2015 or whenever that was, I think that game was 2014. One of the first really big open world zone is completely filled with it because it's a zone in Dragon Age that's based on the Giant's Causeway from real life. So I was like, oh shit, Common Joining, it's just right there. And like, oh, this is really pretty. It's just all over the place. And it was like a cool moment, but it was like, it's one of those, we always call it the Bernie Madoff effect. What's it actually called?
Oh, dude. We always call it that.
The one where you're noticing it.
Once you know about something, you start noticing it everywhere. But it's not because it's actually appearing more. It's because you're just now paying attention to it.
You just know, yeah.
And we kept morphing its name over and over again. And so now it's Bernie Madoff. Because we kept...
I don't know that term.
We kept changing it over and over again. But there's a term for that. And like... it's one of those things where like I was just suddenly aware of it, so then I was like, all right, now I'm just going to call it out every time it comes out. And then after a couple of years of that, I'm like, this has really come up a lot. I feel like I should make like a gallery to chronicle these, just so that I can point out how common it is. But now that I'm pointing it out to people all the time, now they're having that effect too, where now they're seeing it everywhere because I've educated them on the topic, and now they're pointing it out and seeing it and so on.
Keep that its legacy in the world.
Yeah, and that's just this impact on things. And like
Bader Meinhof.
So
I was like, how do I Google this? I just typed in like...
we keep doing Bernie Madoff.
BM effect, seeing things everywhere.
Yeah, and it got it.
Yeah, I got it.
But for people that want to know how basalt columns form exactly, it's similar to mud cracks. Like, have you ever seen mud cracks, which is generally caused when like a pond recedes or a river dries up? And you have all that mud that was like the silty material that was being moved by the river is deposited there, and it's wet and spongy and shit. But then it dries up, and as it dries up, the surface contracts because it has less mass. Like all the water is leaving it, so it's contracting to where the water was. But it's contracting in every direction simultaneously to an equal amount, basically, because all of it's contracting. But like, in order to contract, it has to get smaller. But how do you get smaller if it's a continuous plane that goes on functionally forever-ish? So what it does is just every time the stress becomes too much, it splits. And it tends to split in these really even and consistent geometric shapes. It's less consistent in mud, because it's mud. But this is why mud cracks exist. In the case of basalt columns, it's literally basalt. It's a pool of magma that cools slowly enough that it can contract and then crack. And as a rock, it has a much more the math is way more consistent about when it'll split. So it forms these like basically identical hexagonal columns. And then when you see the version that people are used to seeing, where it's a bunch of staggered columns, that's just erosion. That's the columns breaking over time, and so they look all staggered because you're seeing it from the side. Because now,
the real life ones don't even look that staggered. Usually in video games, they're like super staggered.
Oh yeah, but like whenever you see it in real life, that was a pool at some point, and now you're seeing it from the side. So that means that the side of the bowl or whatever you're imagining has eroded away, and they're being exposed from the side now, and then the columns are kind of breaking off one by one.
Because that's why they're all different heights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I
guess maybe as a rock.
Yeah, as a rock. Am I thinking of maybe I'm thinking of the wrong rock.
Basalt is not a particularly fragile thing. It's also, from what I remember, it's like the most common stone on the entire planet, because almost the entire ocean floor is made of basalt.
Oh yeah, it's not fragile. I'm thinking of the other one that's it's not volcanic. It's sedimentary.
Limestone.
Yeah, limestone.
Yeah, limestone's not
for some.
Limestone's also
like
weird.
But it isn't.
It can be like, there is the chalky version people are familiar with, and that can be very like fragile to the touch because you can just sit there and beat on it, and that's why people always write their names with it when they see it on the beach and stuff. But the main reason why limestone's fragile is actually because it dissolves, at least eventually. So the reason why most caves on the planet exist is because that's limestone, and the water actually kind of burrows through it over time until it creates an entire underwater river through the limestone, because the limestone can be picked up and deposited relatively easy for like a solid rock. Like, it's not like sand or anything, but it can still be picked up like that. But anyway, that's what basalt columns are. There's the lesson. You only had to wait like 2 hours for it.
Yay!
That was one question. We're doing well.
That's fine. That just means we got
absolutely.
a backlog. We have to use every part of the animal. Because it kept inspiring more discussions.
I think basalt columns are pretty neat. That's my answer. So I mean, it taught me about Keith's personality. I've met Keith, and I'm like, oh, you have a
favorite rock?
You have a library of images of basalt columns. What an interesting hobby you have.
Yeah.
What an interesting person you must be.
You can't say it in a way that doesn't sound sarcastic. It's impossible. It's not even my favorite rock. My favorite rock's chert.
Gee, wow. I'm just kidding. I think it actually is. It is unique. I explain it to people sometimes, and they're like, what?
But the entire point of the gallery is mostly just a version of the Bernie Madoff effect, where you just like... And
it's a testament to the lack of creativity in game design.
Yeah, or a variable amount of creativity at least, but just like... I've opened up the gallery now, which you can find on my Twitter and my YouTube and so on, but it's just linked everywhere, because why not? But it definitely is like a certain aspect of like, if it's used really creatively, it can be a really cool visual, but sometimes it can be really nonsensical and kind of rote. Like one of the go-tos is that like if there's a Lovecraft thing going on, then when you go into the crazy dimension where you're hallucinating, it's built entirely of hexagonal columns. It's all basalt columns. Usually it's explicitly basalt columns too, not even like some kind of artificial thing.
And in the case of Lovecraft, it really shouldn't be, because it should be non-Euclidean.
Yeah,
like Lovecraft wrote that dimension as being non-Euclidean, so it needs to be all weird circle-y things.
But then
stuff,
if a fantasy game needs like another dimension to show you, for example, like Divinity Original Sin 2's like weird like meta progression talk to these gods worlds place that you keep going back to is made entirely of hexagonal columns. I haven't played Tides of Numenera, but one of the first screenshots you see of it is a big room full of hexagonal columns. There's a strong association with dragons. If there's a dragon, they'll often be in a basalt column area. But one of my favorite, silliest uses of basalt columns is Deus Ex Mankind Divided. One of the clubs, the entire front of the building is just a facade made of basalt columns. And so it's actually a really neat, weird, jarring visual, because it's just a bunch of like big, tall buildings that are all like 4 stories tall with front-facing windows, and then one of the entire buildings is just basalt columns, and you're like, that doesn't go.
That's Keith's nightclub, dude.
What an idea.
That's how you design it.
I'm playing that game right now. I don't remember seeing that yet. Is it later in the game?
There isn't really a later in the game.
So it's in Detroit.
You're in the same setting. Mankind Divided.
Oh, it's in the new one, right?
The second of the new ones.
Yeah.
That entire game takes place in one city. You go on missions to like other places, but the hub is always the same location the entire game, so it's just kind of there, and you see it when you see it. But then there's other games that are really uncreative, like Mass Effect Andromeda. There's like, oh no, some kind of like corruption or whatever, and it's like their way of expressing it was always just a bunch of weird hexagonal columns just kind of sticking out of the ground. And like the new Halo, it's like, surprise. Like the new Halo is just the fucking astronaut meme where they look at Earth and so on, and there's a guy with a gun, because like the new Halo is literally like, wait, it's all basalt columns? Like, always was. Because the big reveal is that the Halos are always made of hexagonal columns underneath, and that there's just terrain over them. Like that's all the art coming out about Halo Infinity. So that's why Halo Infinity's full of basalt columns. And I'm just like, I swear to fucking God. So like there's always like, every single year I get several beautiful, cool examples, and then like several farcical, hilarious examples to add to this gallery.
Yeah, that one is that the whole point of the game? It can't be.
That's just the setting, at least. The setting is that it's a broken up Halo. So it's like an old, decrepit, eroded halo. So all the columns are showing through and stuff that make up its skeleton, which is apparently a bunch of hexagonal columns.
Dun, dun, dun.
So that's the whole thing. That's also in my gallery. You can see them all in my gallery. The new Myst, they're remaking the original Myst, and the Clockwork Island is made entirely of basalt columns, and I don't remember that being the case originally. But that means it joins Myst 3 and 4 for having basalt columns.
Oh, you have to add cohesiveness.
So I added the original
retroactively.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So the reason it's kind of interesting because if they get made up into basalt columns into hexagons because of the lack of pressure, basically because the stone is shrinking.
Yeah.
The beehives are the opposite of that. It's because of the extra pressure. And the best way to fit everything in a beehive or anywhere really, the best way to fit everything is with hexagons, and that's why it's one of the most natural shapes, the hexagons, because of it's the ideal culmination of pressure. It goes into hexagons, and that's why the beehives are hexagons as well. I think there's a number file video about it. I was trying to find it earlier,
Brady.
but I couldn't. Yeah, could be Brady. It could be the other one.
Oh, there's another person. I'm bad. I only know number file from the context of Hello Internet, the podcast, which is the only I still only know him. Okay, yeah, I found it. So the age is called the mechanical age from Myst 1, and I'm looking at the original screenshots, and it didn't have any basalt columns in it. So they definitely in the remake just added.
They added it just for you, Keith.
Just for me. They found my gallery because everyone that works on Myst is a big fan of me. It's kind of neat. I might play the remake just because I've kind of probably forgotten some of the.
You played every one of them, didn't you?
Yeah, I've played every Myst game, including Uru, the MMO, because there was an MMO Myst game. The Uru, which I kept finding Dark Crystal parallels, and that really started to stand out to me because I kept finding locations that looked weirdly familiar from Dark Crystal. I was like, "What's going on here?" And then I remembered, like, wait. The monk people, like the travelers, the sages in Dark Crystal, all the cool like gangly legged forearmed, the gangly like long necked forearmed like people, and that one they're all peaceful and everything. They're called the Uru. It's just you are you instead of you are you. But I was like, hang on a minute, game, what's going on here? Because once I walked
into, is it on purpose though?
I don't, probably not. But once I walked into what was essentially Olgra's lair, like her giant like astrolabe or whatever the fuck it's called, with like all the planets moving around, and I was like, once I saw that in the game Uru, I was like, starting to stand out to me a little bit. I'm trying to wonder, but it's probably nothing. Just games, just influences and whatnot.
There's a lot of that. I was actually talking about it in one of my Let's Plays the other day about playing. I grew up playing Fallout and other games as well, but Fallout in specific is a setting that is so influenced by Americana, the sort of 50s, not just the references to fiction, but also just to the whole the country in the 50s and that sort of stuff. Futuristic for sure, but like there's a lot of it there. And me as I don't know, the first time I played it, I was probably like 10-year-old Portuguese kid that barely spoke English. That I didn't grow up watching a lot of movies or anything, so my experience with certain games, and it still happens obviously, because we all have our own upbringings, but there's a certain level of connect and disconnect that happens in certain games that can never be replicated easily between people. And me getting to love Fallout without that context of the references that it's supposed to make, and not just Monty Python or anything, or everything else that it does, but just the basic setting, is really interesting because I see other people not specifically Fallout, but other games not like it because they're referential or because they're not
like
referential.
Fallout 2 is full of references and it like makes and breaks it for people.
Yeah.
It really
and for me, it didn't really matter.
Like, you really have to make, if you want your content to be more timeless or something, like, you have to make your story and world not be overly referential to other things and rely on the idea that people already know that stuff and that'll make them feel good or whatever, because the moment it's removed from that context, which it already is instantly it's already removed from the context instantly by just most of the world existing and not being the exact place you grew up or whatever. But then time will remove it over time too. So like it just takes away from its timelessness. It's why Ready Player One started as trash and gets more trash every year and will only become more unwatchable and unreadable as time goes on, because eventually it'll just be a list of names and you're like, is this the part of Les Mis where they just list a bunch of political people they're mad at instead of the story of Les Mis?
I think that if you make anything like a movie or a game or anything with like a lot of very specific references, I think the thing that can become difficult is you aren't exactly aware at the time like what things are going to be relevant like decades from now, right? The reason that like I think with a game like Fallout, I mean, I know there are specific references, but I'm referring more so to like this, like the setting and even like the futuristic aspects are reminiscent of 1950s sci-fi. So even the things that are anachronistic for like the time period it's supposed to be representing are still representative of that time period, because they're like making into reality things that were fictional but like fantasize about.
I love that so much too. I love retrofuturists.
But see, the reason that works is because right now we have a nostalgia for that time because everything that is there survived until now, and so we made a game about it. It's hard if I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a video game that talks about the time that Britney Spears shaved her head, because it's like in 30 years, right? It's like, is that going to be something that people will remember? Well, it's like if you make a game about like 300 years ago, we know what we remember about 300 years ago because we can currently like have reference to what we think 300 years ago is now, depending on what things survived to us.
That's the thing where like you can make art about the time that Britney Spears shaved her head, but you'd want to remove Britney Spears from it, and instead you'd want to create. You'd want to like figure out how to make the narrative. What do we
remember about the early 2000s? It's like, okay, like I can remember like flip phones and like certain things like that, and that will be things that will probably still be remembered about the 2000s like 100 years from now. But it's not going to be those very specific instances that we think are timeless at that time and we obsess about, but are never going to survive.
When it comes to timeless stories, I just feel like there's like an aspect of like a less creative story will just verbatim reference the exact things it's talking about, whereas a more timeless story will deal with the underlying reasons behind that and the feelings and the point of that. Like, you can make a book about Britney Spears shaving her head and so on.
I like how that was the example
from like 20 and have it still be readable 20 years from now without knowing who Britney Spears is, if you write it to be about the ideas instead of Britney Spears.
Yeah, no, just like about like pop idol, like over fanaticism that drives people crazy.
Like I think about how like An Absolutely Remarkable Thing is very much about, in many ways, like 2016 and a bunch of other elements and so on. But it's not full of like named figures and so on that would make it
cheap,
like full of direct context. Instead, they make everything from scratch and are dealing with the larger ideas of like how social media is impacting the entire world in a bunch of different positive and very negative ways and so on. And that's, if you abstract it, you can deal with the ideas more directly. And that's half of sci-fi. That's why sci-fi exists. Like a fucking I have a Harlan Ellison book that's like, not Harlan Ellison. What's his name? I have some tiny book over there that's like a collection of the stories of the guy that basically invented sci-fi like 100 years ago, and he from day one explained that idea that like this is a way to abstract ideas out of their original context so that people can more honestly deal with them without all the baggage and their presuppositions of how they deal with like political systems or economies or races and so on. I wonder if I can find that.
I think there are certain things that are like elemental truths of being a human being. Like there's certain aspects
Voltaire.
Of
there we go.
Oh wow, you forgot what do you call him?
Harlan Ellison is the guy that wrote "I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream." So I was thinking of that because that's another short story collection I have. But no, it's Voltaire.
But like there's parts of like humanity that are like consistent and will always be consistent, and you can place them any place you want, and you can maybe like use things that are relevant to whatever time period or place that you put them in to highlight those like elemental truths. But like there are certain aspects that are going to be relatable till the end of time, and so it's like all of our great media is like, it's about humanity. It's just we put it someplace different every time we make it fun, you know.
Yeah. It's gonna always be very difficult to avoid like the little details dating your work, whatever you do. But the underlying, like, that's, Shakespeare wrote about some king or whatever. What was that Macbeth thing? Is it Macbeth or is it the other one?
He wrote King Lear. You're talking about King Lear? He's not a real. He's not a real.
No.
What story? Wait, what are you trying to reference?
What are you talking about?
I'm trying to reference Shakespeare.
What story is it?
The most important one that he wrote.
There's a king in a lot of them.
Some people would say Macbeth, and some people would say Romeo and Juliet, and some people might even say Caesar.
I think he's thinking of Macbeth.
But there's no king in that one, is there?
Do you mean the Odyssey by Homer?
No. I'm talking about Shakespeare.
The only king that
King Lear, as I said, King Lear is the name of one of his.
I don't know King Lear.
Macbeth is the Lion King one, if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Alas, Poor Yorick. And then some witches.
There's always an underlying essence to the work that just transcends. Nobody knows the people or necessarily want or care to know the people in the political environment of Macbeth. But I mean, it's good. It's interesting from a historical perspective, but it's not necessary for you to enjoy the piece. I say I've never watched Shakespeare, or read. The only thing is I watched that stream by Philosophy Tube last year, I think.
Where you read all of it?
Yeah, I watched a few parts. There's a lot of arc.
Somebody's hammering somewhere.
Yeah, you guys hear that? Someone's doing something in our backyard.
Someone's just doing a hammer.
Watch it be like a burglar who's like building us a treehouse.
He's building a wall around our house to starve us.
Yeah.
Call back. Well, this is good. I think this might be a decent place to wrap things up. Does anyone else have final things to say? They wanted to a thought they wanted to finish. We made it through one question, and we covered so much today. This was a good one. I think I'm happy with this episode.
We've made a lot of progress. Yeah. I don't know towards what, but we have made progress. We built a wall.
Yep. Join us for the next 200 episodes of trying to finish whatever the fuck we started.
We already have a theme for the next one.
Oh yeah. Everybody pick out 5. So I'm just gonna pick Netflix just because.
Is it gonna be? Wait, question. I have my hand up.
Yeah.
Okay, Professor Keith. Does it have to be shows that Netflix made, or can it just be any movie?
No,
it's just on
I'm
Netflix?
just saying on Netflix.
Dude, that's gonna be fucking hard for me, dude.
It just gives us a platform where we can recommend it to people, and they can just click on it and just go watch it. And Netflix is just so ubiquitous for so many people that it's like a reliable way to be able to see the movies. Because otherwise, if I just recommend Society, was it called Society?
Yeah.
If I just recommend Society and it's not on any streaming platforms, then it's like I can just talk about the crazy practical effects or that part where they shove an arm up somebody's ass and it comes out of his mouth and all that. But if you can't watch it anywhere, then it's kind of not a very useful recommendation for.
Yeah, so I was gonna say I know which movies I like that I'll never find on Netflix. So I can't recommend those.
That'll be our baseline, just to point out some weird stuff.
Yep, that'll be easy.
Everyone just pick out 5 movies that you want to recommend for really any reason, and we'll just talk about them or whatever. And there's no rubric really. You decide what matters to you. That seems like a project for next time. Hopefully we all remember.
I could I'll forget, but they'll show up and I'll be like this, and this, and they'll probably all just be on Netflix, so that'll be fine. You throw a dart
You're gonna wing it like
board.
Keith.
And let's do some.
I wing everything.
Yeah.
Like Keith at his columnar jointing presentation.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this on all of the various places, you can find Andrew at youtube.com/thesadgames. You can find me at youtube.com/SebastianSB, or really just Google Keith Ballard and just avoid hockey stuff, and you pretty much find me.
Yeah, that confused me at first.
You can find Colonel RPG by. I think you just have to search Colonel RPG on YouTube because his URL is a lot of things.
I have a URL. It's youtube.com/Colonel RPG Gaming.
Oh, does that work now?
It should work always.
Let's see. I think my bookmark is based on your.
Oh yeah. The UC John thingy thingamajig.
Gaming.
It's got 2 G's at the RPG Gaming.
Oh yeah, there we go. I need to update my bookmark to the vanity URL because my bookmark is set to the version of your profile that's just a bunch of letters, and I'm like, I can't just say that out loud and have people type that in. So it's youtube.com/KernelRPG Gaming. That's RPG then gaming, so it's 2 G's back to back. You can find the SoundCloud for this podcast at soundcloud.com/dialogue choices if you want the audio version. I set them so they're downloadable. There should be a link to an iTunes page from there that I think still works. I don't know. Somehow, I put it on Dialog. I don't understand podcasts very well, but I think I went into my non-iTunes podcast software on my phone and was able to find our podcast there. So something about putting it on iTunes made it available on various podcast platforms, but it might still be called 4 Nerds Save the Universe on those platforms because the RSS maybe doesn't update. It's really confusing. I can't stress enough that once it's off SoundCloud, you really don't have much control over how the rest of it works. It's all automated, and they don't let you control any of it.
We're still 4 nerds, and we are still saving the universe.
Yeah.
Dude, never name a podcast after how many people are on it. It's such a bad idea because every episode you just get proved wrong. What else was there? And you can email us at dialoguechoicespodcast@gmail.com. That's dialogue that ends at a G. Dialogue choices at...
People are going to email the other spelling.
Yeah, and they're going to get it bounced. Do you bounce back for emails when it's not an address?
Yeah, well, if it's not an address, yeah.
Yeah, but dialoguechoicespodcast@gmail.com. You can send your questions, and then we'll slowly half answer it over the course of 2 hours.
It's in caps, though.
Capitals don't matter in an email address.
Not anymore? Did they used to a long time ago?
No. They do in certain servers, but not for Gmail.
Yeah, no.
And fun fact, the capitals don't matter for Gmail.
The capitals are only there for readability.
I didn't know that at all.
They're just there to...
I learned... That's the one thing I'm taking away from this.
That's the one thing.
Not even the middle click. Come on.
No additional
I will never use that.
I don't know
Nobody cares about the middle click. That's true.
Do you have a mouse?
Middle finger to the middle click.
Do you have a mouse for your laptop?
No.
Yeah, so she's...
for laptops.
Wow.
For laptops,
Dude.
it's 2-finger tap.
She just has a netbook.
You're talking about how you can find this person here, and I'm like, I just don't. I'm just a person who lives in Keith's house, and it's not even Keith's house. I just live here.
She is here. He's just here for the fun.
I'm just Stephanie. Yeah.
One of my favorite phenomenons of getting you on the show is this periodic question where people are like, "Who is she? Who is Stephanie?" And
who is anyone?
And that's how
exactly.
I often respond with "Who is anyone?" because I'm genuinely not sure what they expect the answer to be. Do they think that I'm operating on the scale where every person is like, "Oh yeah, this is Stephanie from IGN"? Do they think everyone has to be from somewhere? Everyone on all of my shows is just a person. And
I think that is the norm, So I think it's kind of I'm just
only 1/3 of the people even run any kind of channel. A lot of them are just names that just show up and play some video games or whatever.
I think that's the thing, though. A lot of people assume there's some reason this person's here, and it's not just natural. It has to be. Reason. It has to be somehow a connection. Are you were you work partners? Are you family members?
I'm Keith's mom.
Jesus.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Didn't we come to the conclusion early on that you were Keith's long lost daughter?
Yeah,
what?
I think that was the thing for a little bit on Discord, or was it just me?
I'm saving that twist for a future episode.
It's the first time I've even heard this sentence.
You don't know about the honey cakes. You don't know about Keith's long lost daughter.
You just invent universes inside your own head and act like anyone knows what you're talking about.
That is true. That is very true, actually.
But
there's something on Discord about that.
I'm Keith's neighbor.
That's also
basically.
true, Andrew. Andrew got it right.
The honey cakes nonsense was so powerful that it penetrated a fictional universe. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, like always. See you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.